across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you to Julia. Back Monday right here at the home of common sense here on Talk. Lots to get on with. In the year leading up to December 2025, nearly 1.5 million migrants received universal credit. That is a huge number, nearly 1 in 6 of the total of recipients in that period. Meanwhile, as few as 1 in 100 failed asylum seekers from some countries are being sent home despite the Home Office designating it safe to do so. So we have an issue here in many respects. We'll investigate in just a couple of moments. Also, Labour's favoured think tank has told Rachel Reeves to cut fuel duty by 10p to offset the rising oil costs. The Chancellor is being urged to implement the temporary measure after pump prices rocketed since the start of the Middle East conflict. That's ongoing. Don't expect massive headlines on that one. Don't be jumping for joy on the forecourt. And Wetherspoon's boss, Sir Tim Martin, has criticised Ryanair's boss over their Big Brother proposal to ban the popular airport breakfast pint, opposing the idea of halting early morning alcohol sales before flights. I noticed Ryanair were not talking about banning it on their actual planes, just in someone else's bar. Details to come, everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Of course, there are certain things. We can't talk about that thing today. You know that thing. Yeah, that. Can't talk. We can't talk about it, OK? We cannot mention it. And there might be something you can mention. What? Well, I can't tell you. Otherwise, I would have mentioned it, wouldn't I? But we just can't talk about it. So if you call up and at any point try to crowbar it in, talk about it, mention it, advise it, campaign for it, it will be gone. Gone! We've got a massive metaphoric axe here called Finn the producer. And he's right on it. He's even come to work today in dungarees, the sort of things that would make village people proud. He's ready to go. So he'll be wielding. So we can't talk about that thing. But we are up for alternatives, by the way, in terms of areas of life that you think, well, actually, this is worth a national chat and it's not political. So brilliant. We're up for that as well. 0344 499 1000. So, as you heard there at the beginning, nearly 1.5 million migrants received universal credit last year. 1 in 6 claimants, 15.6%. At this point, you'd think you'd get a loyalty card in the British benefit system. Claim 10, get 1 free. You know, they stamp the card as you go. So out of 9.6 million people tapping into universal credit during the year to December last year, these are the latest figures, and that's a pretty chunky slice. And it's the first time the Department for Work and Pensions have actually broken it down in this way. Somebody finally opened the spreadsheet and said, oh, this is interesting. Well, it certainly is. Now, let's look at the money side of this, because that's the bit that politicians, of course, politely cough over. Universal credit costs us about £80 billion a year. Billion, capital B, billion a year. So, if migrants make up 15 to 16% of claimants, you're looking at something in the region of 12 billion a year. 12 billion. Pocket change, obviously just a few less potholes filled, a couple of libraries quietly closed. 12 billion a year. But everything is totally under control, nothing to see here. Just millions of people, billions of pounds, and a system that is apparently doing exactly what it's supposed to do, depending on who you ask, of course. So here we have a curious situation. Some of this breaks down, by the way, to those that were given indefinite leave to remain from the EU. Now, that could mean you've lived here for a long time and worked for a long time. Been here a decade, say. So you're a foreign national, but you've lived here for a decade. Are you entitled to anything as a result of that? Because you might say, well, hang on, that's fine. I won't take anything, but as long as I'm not paying any taxes. You might find yourself after a decade, you've come from another country, you work in the UK. End of the decade, you find yourself on troubled times. But don't worry, you've paid in cash into the system, top dollar in some respects. You should be entitled to claim that, or should you? Should there just be an out-and-out ban on benefits so we know where we stand? So foreign nationals are never allowed to claim benefits. I don't know how that would work, by the way, in the sense of someone who's lived here for half a century. But you take the point. 0344 499 1000. Should non-Brits be banned from benefits? 0344 499 1000. We'll open the lines on that now. And feeding into that story is this story.
Biggest chunk, fuel duty, that goes to you in the government. So you're in control of the biggest chunk of the cost that people pay at the pump. So if
that's why we've frozen fuel duty. That's why we've frozen fuel duty.
And if prices stay as high as they are, you're not going to put it up in September, are you?
Well, that's what... In a way, let me answer that by saying this, which is we don't know. I'll be candid with you. We don't know how long this conflict is going to go on.
Let me answer that by saying this. Can you imagine if somebody said that in a pub and you're out with a mate having a chat going, well, I missed the results the week. What was the Charlton score? And your mate went, well, let me answer that by saying this. Why don't you just say this and not mention that you're about to say this? I mean, that might be the easiest way around that, because she'd circle. But, of course, he's a politician. He's buying for a bit of time. Over 50%, well over 50%, if you throw in all taxation on petrol, is taken by the government. So when they monkey around with this kind of 10p thing, it's completely disingenuous to the wider issue. They could halve the amount that they take. I appreciate they'd have to... It's been with us for so many decades, this level of fuel taxation, that you'd have to rob it from elsewhere now if you wanted to do something radical like that. But they're in control of it. So it's not as if there's this one little area or we're going to freeze the rise. What about halving the duty? That might be a start. Petrol prices have shot up again. Apparently wars abroad now come with a surcharge at the pump. But here's the thing. This is the wider issue. This is not just about fuel. That's the most visible punch in the pocket, as it were. People are feeling the squeeze in so many areas, and this goes through all sorts of income brackets as well. Those on higher incomes just take a little longer for that feeling to trickle down. Weekly food shopping now feels like a luxury experience. If you're buying branded pasta, you're feeling good about yourself. Energy bills still doing their best to impersonate a horror show. All of that is going. Rents are climbing like they've got somewhere else to be. You know, we know all of this. And good luck with even thinking about buying a home, of course, unless you somehow come into some sort of cash or the bank of mum and dad have stepped in. So what are people cutting back on? What are you cutting back on? Nights out, takeaways, holidays, some even flirting with the idea of turning the heating off altogether. Thankfully, we're coming into better weather, but you take the point. The idea that we're living in the 21st century in the UK and people who are working are going, maybe we should turn the heating off, dear. Radical. The Institute for Public Policy Research also says the Iran war could cost the Treasury up to 8 billion quid a year through higher interest payments and lower tax revenues. So that would mean over here that inflation could hit 5.8%. That is one figure that's rumoured around, above the Bank of England's 2% target. Growth could fall to as low as 0.3%. So the grand plan to tackle this is knock a few pence off a litre of fuel. Seriously? And let's hope everybody doesn't notice that absolutely everything else in life is really expensive. This is genius. 0344 499 1000. I want comments on that. And quite seriously, just give us an overview, if you like, of your own expenditure. What is it you no longer do? What is it you've kind of either stopped doing or dramatically cut back on doing? Just as a result of how expensive it is to exist in this country. And as a result of what's going on in Iran, likely to get even more expensive. Talk to me about the fuel duty as well. And, of course, that other question, should non-Brits be banned from benefits? It's a big story. Let's get a word on this and the other big stories of the day. Peter Barnes, political strategist, is with us. Afternoon to you, Peter.
Hi, Ian. How's it going?
All good at this end. A lot to get through here. Nice to have you with us. So 1.5 million migrants on benefits. A tricky figure, of course, because some of those migrants, to use that word, could have lived here for many, many years. So I assume you'd have to extrapolate that group from the equation, or you'd have to find a line somewhere of who's entitled and who isn't.
Yeah, let me start by answering this. I mean, first of all, great comment on that. But no, this is a really serious story, because what it actually shows is that it's not just the fact that people are coming here on the small boats. It's the fact that when they're here, the economic cost is hitting absolutely everybody. And you were spot on when you said that it affects every single group, every single sector in our society. And the implementation and that you're going to have to do to try to roll any of this back is absolutely, it's just, I can't even put into words, actually, just how big of a problem this actually is. Because whilst you were talking about 80 billion for the cost of oh my God, this just got out of my head, for the
Universal credit.
Universal credit, thank you very much. Actually, our entire debt is 96 billion. Yeah. So it wouldn't even cover that. And yet again, it is only increasing. It is only increasing again and again and again as we bring more people in. And yet again, we just don't deport anybody. We don't tackle this problem. But it's really important, like I said, to actually kind of understand that this is an economy-wide problem. It's a productivity problem. It's an investment problem. It's a public services problem. It is part of such a large ecosystem that to kind of narrow it down onto one specific thing really does a disservice as to how bad actually everything else is. Because the government haven't just messed up this thing. They messed up literally everything. I go back to January, 0% growth. That is why this stuff is all out of control. If you do not have a growing economy, everything spirals. And we're seeing that literally play out day by day.
Indeed. And of course, there is that very real sense that successive governments have let this... I don't know whether it's because... You know the world of politics, Peter. Is it because these areas are so big that to truly tackle them would take a huge economic consideration, and someone will be at the rough end of that consideration, and a huge amount of time and bureaucracy? Is it just too big to tackle?
For me, I actually think you might be right. I think it is. And I think realistically, when I speak to people from the Treasury and people who understand the economy a lot better than I do, they always say that the problem is everything is collapsing at the same rate at the same time, because we're living in the consequences of decisions that were made 20, 30 years ago. And it's all kind of come together as one moment. And that's the real problem. And you're right that it would take such a political effort and an economic hit for every single person in this country that no government is ever going to really do it when our politics is so tight and no government has a commanding authority or mandate to do anything. That's part of the problem. I will say, though, that also the public have to take a little bit of responsibility, because we kept voting out people who warned us about these problems 20, 30 years ago. So a lot of it, chickens have come home to roost, and a lot of it is, obviously the politicians' fault. But we all played a role in this, and I think it's going to take all of us to get us out of it.
Isn't there? I mean, we were talking to some of the people in the office who come from Commonwealth countries, and they're not allowed to claim any benefits. That just goes with the territory. Now, you would think of all places around the world that Commonwealth countries might be the one where you've got a fast track because of your Commonwealth status. Counts for absolutely nothing, and so often it seems to be the very reverse of that. So if you just nipped over from Australia or New Zealand and decided I'm going to work in the UK for a year, depending on your visa status, I assume, but you wouldn't necessarily get benefits. You can come from other countries and you're straight in.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's basically another failure of the Brexit deal. The kind of stronger ties with the Commonwealth was literally on the table. All we had to do was seize it, and yet again, we fumbled the ball. It's rather ridiculous. But also, I think there is a strong factor of this, that our establishment just prefers Europe. It prefers being in Europe with Europeans, and that's part of the bigger problem, is that we are saddled to the European project, which is itself disintegrating around us day by day, probably worse than we are. I mean, you look at Italy, France, the German economy is now in the Tank. It's absolutely catastrophic. So this idea also that Starmer has of going back in, that's not going to work either. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
If you've contributed nothing, either never or only for, like, I don't know, a year or something. I don't think it's unreasonable that it's not like some kind of right-wing, uncaring, mean-spirited policy to say, we are not giving you benefits because you've paid nothing in, or you've paid in, 30 quid over the course of the last month. So you're not entitled. So if you do come to this country and you work after X amount of time, then maybe your ability to claim a certain benefit might kick in. But until that point, it shouldn't be that. Now, that's not a right-wing position, but it would be caricatured as one.
Oh, definitely. You're basically a Nazi now, Ian. I'm afraid that's
Correct.
how it works. And this is part of the problem, is that sensible policies, sensible ideas were kind of kicked out of the room because of the messengers. This is absolutely just everything wrong with our politics and the establishment, because it did the wrong thing because of what's it's known as suicidal empathy. In other words, you have to give everything all of the time to people less fortunate than you, even if it actually harms you in the end.
Yeah.
It's and that's where we are. We are living in that, and we have to get out of it. Somehow, we have to have a government that is willing to say no. Yeah. And that's going to take a big mandate.
Indeed. Let's feed it into this one as well. I mentioned this at the beginning. It's actually worth replaying this clip because it is one of my favourite clips of Ed Miliband, because the mumbling and stumbling is just beautiful. It's Miliband talking to Koonsberg on that issue of fuel duty.
The biggest chunk, fuel duty, that goes to you in the government. So you're in control of the biggest chunk of the cost that people pay at the pump. So if
that's why we've frozen fuel duty. That's why we've frozen fuel duty.
And if prices stay as high as they are, you're not going to put it up in September, are you?
Well, that's what, in a way, let me answer that by saying this, which is we don't know. I'll be candid with you. We don't know how long this conflict is going to go on.
So there were 3 points of buying some time there. Let me answer that by saying this. Let me be candid with you. Just answering a simple question is not being candid. That's just answering a question. Being candid being candid would be saying something, mildly controversial at best. So Miliband doesn't really know what he's talking about. But of course, it's just one facet, isn't it, petrol, in terms of cost of living, Peter?
Oh, but you're so right on Ed Miliband. That clip is why he won't be Prime Minister from this country, because it just shows how out of his depth he actually is. He has no idea what he's talking about. He doesn't understand the energy market. He doesn't understand oil markets. He should not be an MP. He should not be in cabinet. He should go away for the sake of the nation. But you're right. The reality is this is one bill. But why this is always very powerful in politics is it is the one that you feel, but you have to do, if you know what I mean. It's a visible sight. You see the price of it. It's not something that you kind of do once a week or twice a week. You do it on the regular. So therefore, it is one of those things that in politics we always say you don't touch fuel duty. It's just one of those kind of written rules. But you are right that, I think it's 52 pence of every litre is in tax. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And then, by the way, Peter, there's also the tax. They then tax the retailers who sell the petrol. So
exactly, and then you wonder why you've got so many petrol stations and these places are now owned by large multinationals. They're not individual businesses like they used to be. This is the effect of when you don't control your energy market and you don't control the price of fuel. This all spirals out of control. One thing I don't particularly like, and I find very insidious, is they're blaming the Iran war for all of this. Rachel Reeves has done it as well, and many other people around the political sphere, but it has started years ago, decades ago. I remember I was at university and we were learning about how this was eventually going to happen. That's how long ago it was. I mean, at some point you have to wonder whether these people are actually capable of doing the job they were elected to do, because I really don't think they are.
Listen, stay with us, Peter. Lots to get our teeth into there. Peter Barnes is with us looking at the big stories of the day. There's a couple of points up and running so far. Should non-Brits be banned from benefits? This is reference the migrant benefit story revealed today for the very first time. This, by the way, has come out of the Department for Work and Pensions. They've actually broken down the figures, don't usually do that. And cost of living, just give us an overview of what the areas that you're really seeing this thing bite. What have you had to cut out? What can you no longer do? What is your sort of on your radar as being of grave concern financially? 0344 499 1000. It's 1:20. This is Talk.
so happens that it's all "you're amazing."
Right. Paul! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 1:25. Neil says, Ian, can I give you a living, breathing example of paying benefits to foreigners? I'm a Brit living in Switzerland for 25 years. Trust me, I've paid lots of tax. But as someone who has a right to permanent residency in Switzerland, I'm entitled to benefits exactly the same as a Swiss person. But the key thing is, you have to have contributed. That's how it should be. So what you are suggesting, I think I should say, is that as a Swiss national in the UK for 25 years who's paid lots of tax, that I should not be entitled to anything. How is that fair? Target those who've contributed zero. No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm asking whether that is how some... There is a school of thought that if you are a foreign national, you get nothing. Well, that can't be okay if you're, you might have a pretty good job paying a ton of tax for 15 years. And then you're told, I'm sorry, you can't possibly have child allowance. What? Why? Because I'm paying for it. I totally agree. Neil, thank you very much indeed for that. Peter Barnes is with us looking at the big stories of the day, Peter. What about this? 2 British passengers from the hantavirus. Is it hantavirus? Hantavirus.
Yeah.
Hantavirus. Yes. I heard somebody earlier say they thought it was hamster virus when they first heard it. Like it was some kind of sort of rodent
I have
thing.
to admit, I think I've practiced at least 12 times, and each time I come up with a different word and pronunciation for it. So, yeah.
That's true.
I think, I'm going to say, whoever names these things, let's make it simpler, shall we?
I think
that's the first order of business.
Yeah, at least we knew how to... Well, COVID had, COVID, coronavirus, one word or 2 words, all of that. Anyway, 2 of the British passengers from that infected cruise who disembarked at St Helena before flying home via Johannesburg are now self-isolating in the UK for fears of exposure. A professor of infectious diseases, Robin May, told the BBC this.
So there are 2 UK nationals who left the cruise earlier, as often happens on cruises, of course. People join for parts of it. Before this outbreak was detected, they returned back to the UK. But obviously there's a chance they may have been exposed to the virus. So we have been in contact with them. They have agreed very kindly to self-isolate.
Self-isolate. These people are rabid, Peter. Why are we letting them in our land?
Oh, we gave them an inch and they took a mile, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I know they live here and they're British, but they shouldn't be here.
They really shouldn't, because they are going... Yeah, it's what I call the COVID hangover. Yeah. In other words, they're so obsessed with this. Anything medical after COVID has therefore got to be treated as though it's going to be a plague and all the rest of it. It is not. This is, I think fewer people have died of this virus in the UK than have died of tuberculosis, and yet we don't all freak out about that. It is absolutely obscene to me that yet again we have to have these arguments about proportionality and understanding that caution does not mean losing our minds. We have to get out of this mentality. But I think it also speaks to a bigger problem of over-medicalizing our society. That, the reason that we jump on the kind of the medical aspect of everything is because we use it as a weapon to defeat the other side. It's got to stop. This is a very rare case. It's a very isolated case, both in ship and in terms of the number of people. It must be terrifying for the people on the ship, and it's very sad some people have passed away. But we have to keep a level head. We can't afford to lose our heads again. Literally, we can't afford to. So we have to allow the calm people who actually understand this stuff to talk and stop putting people on the airways who don't know what they're talking about when it comes to medical stuff. It has got to stop, because it's only exacerbating everybody's fears and this kind of anxiety that we have. Because I always say, we never got over COVID. We just all forgot about it and moved on. We repressed it. We didn't get over it. And that is going to burst at some point, and I really hope it's not over one cruise ship.
Well, let's hope not. I mean, viruses are sort of, part of the human thing. They come in different waves, shapes, forms and strengths, but the idea that there's oh my goodness, there's got a virus, it's like they will happen from time to time. This is not new, and arguably lots of them probably happen and we never talked about them before, but you know, maybe
that's
go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's actually one of the big problems is that because of the I think they call it the PHP test, the kind of the nasal thing, because that is so sensitive. What it's actually doing is picking up what was already in the background of our society. So therefore, it's cases may be on the rise, but that's only because we now got the technology to be able to count the rise. So it's always been there, and yet again, it's not understanding the data and actually translating that to the public in a calm and sensible way. Yeah. It's one of those big problems of statistics. They're not the best actually in terms of trying to convince people of anything.
Let's just move to this story finally. I had a brief chat with Julia about this at the end of her programme. The German tourist who sued his tour operator after staff refused to enforce a towel reserving ban on the Greek resort of Kos. He went down there with his family, sometimes at 6 a.m, just looking for loungers. He was looking over their little hands and he couldn't find one in that side, none by the pool, none by the bar. Couldn't find one, despite the fact that apparently the towel enforcing towel reserving ban was in place. They ignored it. So he sued them and won.
Yeah, this story is bizarre because in a way, I kind of think he's right that they have the policy, they didn't enforce the policy, therefore, yeah, he's in the right. But who is getting up at 6 a.m. to go and get sunbeds? That is my problem with this story. I've never been one of those people. I don't understand it. I'm not really I don't really go on those kind of holidays, but it's just ridiculous to me that people kind of ruin their 2 weeks in the sunshine by getting up earlier than they would do to go to work most of the time.
Yes,
it's just bizarre to me.
It is bizarre.
It's just bizarre.
It is strange. I did say to Julia earlier that there is I've been employing a policy for years now where I don't even bother booking the hotel. I just sneak into a hotel on the side gate and sleep on the lounger all day long and throughout the evening. So therefore it becomes my lounger. I'm there all the time.
I think that's called the migrant crisis.
Yes, I did. At one point I was put on a list, I have to say.
Yes, yeah.
But I mean, it is kind of curious.
It's just one of those.
When I've stayed at hotels, you know, if you've got a hotel that's got a view of the pool and you look down at sort of 7:30 in the morning and every single lounger has got a towel on it, but there's no one sitting on them.
Yeah, that's another thing you just brought up there. Views in hotel rooms. Unless it's some kind of amazing thing, who's spending that much time in the hotel room that they're not enjoying the sunshine and the outdoors? I don't understand people.
Yeah.
I don't get this.
I don't get it either. Listen, Peter, always great to have you on. Thank you, Peter Barnes, political strategist. This comes from Enda, who says, afternoon, my name is Enda. I'm a Catholic from the Republic of Ireland. I love that nice, polite introduction. I served in the British Army from 1989 to 1995. Would I be entitled to benefits? Hell yes. Well, I mean, if you're Irish, we have a very different arrangement with the Irish, don't we? It's kind of, you know, because we're neighbours. The whole passport arrangement. I think I'm right in saying I can. Well, I mean, Ireland's an EU country, isn't it? But certainly there are very specific differences between our relationship with Ireland and our relationship in France, as I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong. 0344 499 1000. Ways around the towel thing at the swimming pool. It's not. Is it just a British and German thing? Do you just go to different hotels? I mean, does any hotel enforce the towel banning thing? And how would you enforce it? What if you went down at 6 o'clock in the morning with your towel because you wanted to lay on the thing? You wanted to be there at 6 a.m. and that is completely possible. Thoughts on that as well? Should non-Brits be banned from benefits? How is the cost of living squeezing you and punching you in the pocket? Details on that, your comments, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
25 to 2, Samara Gill, Talk's own Samara Gill. I don't know why I use that voice, but our very own Samara Gill is with us in the studio. Just to chew the fat on these stories, might do a little quiz at the end, by the way.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, Jeremy was quizzing me the other day. It didn't end well.
No, but it just occurred to me. No, I'll save it. I'll save what I was going to say, because otherwise we'll start doing it now. But okay. So we'll come to it at the end. And you're thinking, what the hell is he going on about?
I'm getting scared.
You should be. So what about this? 1.5 million people are on benefits. Migrants are on benefits, OK? So if you extrapolate the number from the overall amount of people on benefits, it's absolutely huge. It is a significant number. 15.6% of people who claim are migrants. Now, you then have to get into the territory of define a migrant. You know, is it somebody who's just arrived here? Is it if you've been here 20 years and you've worked and paid your taxes diligently, then I think most people would say, well, you're probably as entitled as anyone else.
Yeah, it's a really...
Or are you?
Well, or are you? I mean, with the tax I pay, I'm like, why aren't I entitled to some benefits? But I'm not, actually, because
you're not. So
under my visa...
You come from the land down under... I nearly sang it. You come from Australia, of course.
Yeah, I do.
Which is that island above the... It's sort of the North Island of New Zealand, really, isn't it?
Well, sure, that's a lovely way of putting it. Yeah. You will face my wrath afterwards.
I actually did see that on a postcard in Australia.
That's horrible.
It said South Island, North Island, and then it had Northwest Island written across Australia.
New Zealand is but a blemish on the Australian map, let's just say. Yes. No, but look, the thing is, I'm here as a foreigner, and on my visa it says no public funds. So when I was looking into the data, it is really interesting. Half of it is because we kind of didn't Brexit properly, and so a lot of people from the EU or former EU nationals who are part of the ILR scheme were able to, basically claim their benefits. But unfortunately, you've got a big percentage which are foreign nationals, which are living off the taxpayer dollar. And I think it's really interesting because take Somalis, for example. So you've got the 2021 census data that said that Somali-born residents, they face a very high rate of unemployment, social housing dependencies. Some studies indicated that over 45% receive housing benefit. But they only represent 0.1% of the population. And others are saying 72% live in social housing. This is based on census data.
Yes.
So I think it's interesting when we look at what nationalities are coming into the country and then say, okay, is that compatible? Is that going to work? Because you've got other households such as Southeast Asian, your Indian households that actually are a net benefit in terms of what they bring into the economy, if we're just looking at raw data here. So I think it's something we really need to tighten the belt on, let's just say.
If you're a neurosurgeon that has come from India or China, Nigeria, wherever, to pick obvious countries where people do come in a professional capacity, and you've been here for 20 years and you're earning about 400 grand a year and you're paying all manner of things into the system, I don't think anybody's going to say to the neurosurgeon, sorry, mate, your kids are not entitled to this particular bit. Because they would be, wouldn't they? Because they've paid for it. But if you are... There's another group, you just mentioned the Somali group. Now, that may well have started with desperate Somalians coming here to escaping a horrendous war. We also understand that because we're civilised people. But you have to... Is everyone just scared? Are politicians just scared of going, sorry, we do have to draw a line here?
Well, I think it's completely to do with that. I mean, there are plenty of nations that do not offer benefits to foreign nationals or foreign-born citizens. So you've got Qatar, the UAE, Japan, Poland, Germany. These are countries that do not offer that sort of thing. It's very possible to just put in certain bits of legislation that would ensure that that wouldn't happen. So I think that you're right, it's kind of this soft touch approach that we have towards those who do do come here, and that's sort of, it's in the British spirit, it's in the British blood. You know, we are the country that fought all the wars, tried to maintain peace within Europe historically, and want to be that helping hand. But unfortunately, it seems like the kindness has been taken for weakness in this situation. You know, you've got Brits who actually do deserve these benefits who aren't able to access them.
That's absolutely true. And your people from Commonwealth countries, where you would imagine, like your own, you'd imagine that you'd somehow be in a fast-track lane on that, just because of the because of the Commonwealth thing, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would think so.
And look at you, they won't give you anything, so you can't get your hair done or anything, can you, you poor thing?
I know, it's just terrible. It does look like I haven't been over. This is the whole, this is the pinpoint of the segment, but yeah, I think we need to also just look into the benefit system in general. The whole thing is quite broken. You've got basically it benefiting families that are split up, benefiting single mothers, which in some cases can be a really good thing, but also does it then encourage families not to stay together and for us not to have that family unit in order to get more benefit? You've got elements of it that are genuinely just over the phone now. If you have anxiety, if you have depression, because of the COVID era, you're able to just call up and have your consultation done, not in person. That also needs to be stopped. So to stop us becoming a benefits country with a nation attached, or however you want to, I always cook that that saying, we do need to really basically root and gut the whole thing.
I think so. How long have you been here now?
6 years.
6 years. Well, Betty says, who may well be a fellow Antipodean. Do you know what countries come under Antipodean?
Is this part of the quiz?
No, this isn't part of the quiz. We haven't even got to the quiz yet.
Go on.
Well, Kiwis and Aussies are Antipodean, right? But I think I'm right in saying so are South Africans.
Yes, which doesn't make any sense.
Isn't it is it an equator thing?
Oh gosh, is it a southern thing? Is it that we're all everything's upside down where we're from?
Yeah.
Oh God, Antipodean,
Somebody said when I went to Australia, and also not part of the quiz, said to me that the water goes round the sink the other way round in Australia.
Correct, yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm pretty sure when I turned up in Melbourne, it was the first thing I did in a loo. So I'm going to check this thing.
Thank God that's the first thing that crossed your mind. I'm glad your priorities were straight.
Yes, I've had a 27-hour flight, but no, I need to see what way round the world. It doesn't go the other way, does it?
What curious
You're
insight.
saying it really does. Anyway, Betty, who may well be a fellow Antipodean, says Samara probably has to sit in the UK for 7 years for the right to remain and paid all visas and work permits like the rest of Commonwealth immigrants. We should all collectively sue for discrimination. So I was driven by the word we should all sue, that Betty may well be a fellow Australian, Kiwi, whatever.
Well, don't worry, I'm not going to go for ILR. I'm not going to go for any. I think this country's given me enough. I don't believe that I need to. No, I don't believe I deserve citizenship.
Well, you're sitting here with us for a start.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. That's my golden ticket. I don't believe that I should get citizenship here. I'm not a British person. I just don't believe that I feel like Australians do come here, though. They stay for a bit and then they leave. There are other portions of the society that don't, and that's totally their right. That's how Britain's always been.
It's great. I love it. I feel quite proud when Samara said, I don't want to stereotype or anything, but when you were a kid throwing a boomerang at a dingo, did you ever think that you would be... Did you
Every
ever
time.
think you'd be sitting in a studio in London Bridge?
Yeah, yes.
Did you go, oh, one day?
Yeah, one day.
Don't worry, dingoes.
I'll make it to the big smoke.
One day.
Yeah, one day I'll do it, and I won't claim my citizenship because I'm that Australia proud. No, I think, it's really interesting though in terms of how the British system works and how it is quite easy to play.
Yeah.
There are so many different holes. I almost know that as a foreigner, that there are holes in this system that are made so that the British people come second, and unfortunately those who've just arrived somehow can make it to the top of the queue in some sort of way.
Well, we also live in this strange world, which brings us to the other story as well. Just 1 in 100 failed asylum seekers return to some countries, even though some of them are deemed to be safe. So these are 100 all failures. They're all failures, but only 1 in that 100 are being sent back. What the hell's going on? 1 in 100.
What's going on is that there is a system whereby you can appeal as many times as you want.
Who came up with that system?
Yeah, precisely. And look, they're trying to put an end to it, but I think we need to look at the fact that you can appeal 8 times. Most of these cases that we bring up, or over 8 times, most of these cases we bring up on Talk are about asylum seekers who go, well, I've got, you know, Article 8, right to a family life on the ECHR. I can appeal multiple different times. And unfortunately, because of the court backlog, they just get so fed up with having to continue to process these people that they then just shove them through the system in order to get rid of that claim.
We have these big hotels, don't we, like at Heathrow, that are there for people ready to jump on planes, right?
Yes.
And no one goes anywhere.
Yes, I've been to that Holiday Inn that I think you're referring to.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, you were staying there or reporting there?
I tried to stay there, but it's all full up for multiple months at a time for some reason.
Isn't that strange?
Yes. So, yeah, I went on many protests out there, and the local residents
You were covering the protest rather than being on the protest.
I was not part of them.
Yeah. Did you go on a protest this morning?
Yeah, I did go on a protest this morning. The pro-Palestine people are at it again.
Yes.
They really, really do feel that Barclays Bank is the devil incarnate.
Oh, for God's sake, it's the UK. Sod off. I mean, what, really?
I know.
This is not, I don't care about your Palestinian affinity. I don't give a monkeys about your Hamas views or your Gaza views. Well, I care about your Hamas views. They're a terrorist group. But I'm sorry, this is the United Kingdom. This is not our fight in that respect.
Absolutely. I've really enjoyed watching Julia Hartley-Brewer on Twitter just go, can we talk about my bin collection now? That's all I'll say on that, because we can't mention anything else. But I think it was definitely a protest for the unwashed and unemployed, because the amount of people that were available at 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning to go and sit outside the Queen's building was pretty impressive. And, you know, when I asked them about the terrorist attack that had happened less than a week ago, they didn't have any strong feelings about it. And that's what really scares me. You know, we've had people knifed on the street and still they seem to want to justify that behaviour on the altar of their
want to believe that somehow that every Jew or even every Israeli is the embodiment of the Israeli government, which of course is a huge kind of stereotype and generalization in the first place. And, you know, and even if they were Israeli as distinct from Jewish but not Israeli, I mean, they're still not responsible for anything. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's just, this is absolutely mad, what is happening.
Absolutely, it is, because the thing is, I asked them this morning, I said, well, what about the genocide that's happening in Sudan? Yeah. What about the genocide that's happening towards the Uyghur population in Xinjiang in China? Where are your protests for that? And they said no. The Israeli government is the most evil, and they need to be absolutely stopped. And you know, the Zio media, which is what they called us, needs to be out of there. And I think it's because, as you said, Ian, it's so deeply rooted in anti-Semitism. Yeah. It's this hatred towards the Jews. It's not really even about Palestine at this point.
Absolutely. Just before we... Oh, by the way, the French police have started slashing dinghies over on the north coast, apparently.
Great. £800 million went into a couple of knives and slashing dinghies. They
did one on Sunday.
Oh, did they?
Apparently,
okay, great.
Yeah.
What a payoff. I mean, look...
They're celebrating big time over there at the Palace, at the Calais police station.
The gendarmes have sat there and stood toe deep in the water while thousands of boats have been let across the channel, and I think it's egregious because we keep paying France hundreds of millions of pounds for them to do something, and it's not in their interest to do anything about it. Interestingly, or at least this article says that the human rights lawyers are already getting involved, which is quite fascinating, because we reported on a story earlier this week whereby a boat made it into British territory, and 2 women were found dead on that boat. Now, it has come out that they could have been crushed or asphyxiated, so they didn't drown. And there's no investigation. Yes, and it's so mysterious in some way. 2 women, they are doing an investigation into it, but I didn't really hear the cries of the human rights lawyers at that time when this story came to pass. And it just shows you where their loyalties lie.
It's kind of weird, isn't it? There is a lot of pick and choosing going on. Speaking of which, it's not really a quiz we've got here, but last time you were on with us, something terrible happened for an Australian. You had virtually, not quite, but virtually never heard of Neighbours.
Yes, that is. I wasn't really allowed to watch it. Apparently, it was too scandalous.
I wasn't allowed to watch. I wasn't carried. I mean, it was flipping Neighbours.
Yeah, exactly. This is probably why I've ended up in this
Nightmare on Elm Street, Ramsey Street.
The Nightmare on Ramsey Street.
So what? Your parents thought it was what? Too? Because.
They kind of thought, like, oh, don't get influenced by this sort of tosh of, like, neighbours fighting and all. I don't know. I had a very strange childhood, Ian. We can get into it. Yeah, we can get into it on another.
I quite like that.
So
are there other cultural things you don't know about from your own country?
I didn't even know the capital of Tasmania.
Which is?
Hobart. But I said
Hobart,
but it's meant to be Launceston.
I thought it was Hobart.
I think it's Hobart.
Didn't you just say Tobart?
Tobart.
You did just say Tobart.
Did I just say Tobart? Yeah. Message in if I said Tobart.
Okay. Skippy was a...
kangaroo.
Bluey.
Joey?
Bluey is a dog.
Wait, what?
Think of Australian stuff. Skippy's a kangaroo.
Bluey's a dog.
Rolf Harris is a paedophile. Right? These just follow on. You just know this stuff. Everybody should know this stuff. Have you ever heard of Home and Away?
Yes.
Okay. Prisoner?
No.
No? Have you heard of the Sullivans?
No.
Bloody hell.
We've imported.
I've got a fake Australian in the studio.
Yeah, I think I am. I think you've actually. This is the biggest piece of investigative journalism.
Absolutely. There's you investigating people who shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And we've rumbled Samara.
I think you should be an immigration officer.
I should be, yeah. You ain't coming anywhere near. You shouldn't be allowed back in Australia, frankly. You'll be, like, completely rudderless.
Ian Collins deports Samara Gill. I like that headline.
Because she didn't know that Skippy was a kangaroo.
That is pretty.
Well, you did get that one
I think I should be put to death for that, to be honest.
Did you ever meet Skippy?
Did I ever? I've met many kangaroos, and I've had many violent encounters with them, so don't you worry. But yeah, Bluey, we have a red dog, but we don't have Bluey. I think this is a falsity.
Bluey, very briefly, Sam, Bluey is a dog, right? It's a kids' cartoon. I think the BBC bought it from ABC or something mad like that.
Yeah.
And actually, ABC didn't really charge them very much money and could have made an absolute fortune. Now the BBC have made millions out of it.
Correct.
Samara, thank you. We'll speak soon for the next instalment of Are You a Real Australian? Coming next. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
It just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White!
Sir Lenny Henry.
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 4 minutes to 2 o'clock. Let's get a voice note first from Mike.
Today, with the unmentionable day because of there's some quite good conversations today. Could I suggest that maybe you put it to your management that they think about doing this more often? Just have a day off from talking about and all that going on and just chat. Just chew the conversation and just chat. There's been some really good things today. One noticeable point was Jeremy Kyle actually laughing this morning. Not like his usual anger. It was quite nice to hear. So I think it'd be a good thing to just do this a bit more often.
I like it, Mike. I like it. We have explored this before over the years at different elections. You know, is there a specific thing you do at that time? What's your favourite board game? Bring back Chewits, Spangles, you know, that kind of stuff. Remember Hawaii 5-0, greatest theme tune. There's all of that retro stuff. Let's talk to Caroline on a more serious issue. Caroline's in Glasgow. Afternoon to you, Caroline.
Hi, Ian. Thanks for taking my call.
It's a pleasure. What are you thinking?
I'm calling in relation to my observations about the benefits situation and claimants not being from the UK.
Yes.
So we employ a nanny, and she's from Brazil, and she's lived here for many, many years. She was previously a chef, and she's everything's through the books, etc. And she lives here, but probably about just over 10 years ago, many of her family members from Brazil decided that they wanted to come and live in the UK. So she was essentially their contact here. They had, I think, European roots, so were able, it was pre-Brexit, so were able to come and live here, and you know, she helped them get jobs, etc. So there's many of her family members here now, all because of her. However, they no longer speak because she is so disapproving of the way they work the system to claim as many benefits as possible. So she's never done that, and is a big contributor. But she now sees her family members working. They do have jobs because otherwise they wouldn't have their visas or whatever. But they insist on working the very minimum that they can in order to claim the maximum universal credit. They're very open about it. They don't see this as something that they shouldn't perhaps admit.
It's kind of weird, that, isn't it? Because I think most of us on balance, Caroline, probably have more or less the same view on this, but there's clearly some people that don't care.
Well, exactly. And also, you know, they've come over here, they've got, you know, multiple kids. Their kids are in some really great, you know, state schools, all paid for by the taxpayer. They make full use of the NHS.
Yeah.
And also they can afford to go back to Brazil for holidays 2-3 times a year, which, you know,
ain't cheap.
can't do because she can't afford to.
That's insane.
They take their kids out of school without a second thought. They pay the fine if need be because, you know, they just want to. You know, they seem to be relatively well off. I assume they're working extra maybe for cash or whatever. But as I say, it's caused a relationship breakdown between our nanny and her.
So same country, same family, but very different ideas of what acceptable standards are when you go somewhere else to live. Listen, Caroline, I've got to move for no other reason than time. That's a great call to kick us off with. Thank you. 0344 499 1000. Right now it's 2 o'clock. Let's get the news headlines.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yeah, welcome back. Home of Common Sense. So much to get through here. Loads of calls, great comments on the way. We are discussing, of course, those universal credit figures. 1.5 million migrants received universal credit in the month to December last year. That represents nearly 1 in 6 of the 9.6 million total recipients. I mean, this is a huge figure for many reasons. Economically, that one migrant cohort group does reach about the 12 billion mark, 12 billion quid. There is an obvious question, should non-Brits be banned from benefits? Where is the line drawn on that? Lines are open. Also this afternoon, talking of unfathomable, Labour's favoured think tank has told Rachel Reeves to cut fuel duty by 10p to offset rising oil costs. Now, the Chancellor is being urged to implement the temporary measure after pump prices rocketed due to the war in the Middle East. However, it should be said, we can dine out all we like on the price of petrol. It ain't just petrol, Rach, that's stinging people royally in the purse. It's a whole list of other things. It could just be food, turning on your heating, just having a bit of a life. Where are you finding the squeeze, and what have you had to stop doing, quite literally, or heavily curtail as a result of the cost of living crisis? And there's a bit of a battle between millionaires Sir Tim Martin, he owns Wetherspoons, and of course the big boss at Ryanair, after the latter proposed a ban on having a pint at the airport before you take off, the early morning one, the breakfast pint. The opposing idea, of course, came from Sir Tim Martin, who thought this was a terrible thing. Naturally, Ryanair think it's a great thing because, of course, they can give you the beer on the plane rather than in the airport. Do you favour the lounge pint before you take off at 4 a.m. in the morning? 0344 499 1000. Our lines are open. Tim says, oh my, Samara is a pretend Aussie. You've employed an illegal... Maybe she is. Maybe there is no Australian Samara, but she will be back on air with us soon. This one in from Terence. Water direction down the loo. Well, we talked about this, didn't we? About when I went to Australia, somebody said to me, when you turn the taps on, the water in the sink goes anti-clockwise and not clockwise. And I thought that's not true. And I'm pretty sure I tried. I've been to Australia twice, and I'm sure I tried this, and it wasn't any different. However, Terence says, if you study rotational dynamics in mathematics or physics, there is a force called Coriolis force that cause water or air to move to the left or the right, depending on which hemisphere you are in. It not only affects water going down the loo, but the direction of rotational weather patterns as well. So what did I see down the sink in Melbourne? No idea. Thank you, Terence, for that. 0344 499 1000. So let's move to this story. A top Labour think tank has advised Rachel Reeves to temporarily slash fuel duty by 10p. Now, this recommendation comes after the Middle East conflict has caused a sharp increase in oil costs, leading to rocketing pump prices, and they are still jaw-dropping if you look, which the measure, of course, is intended to counteract. Remember when Ed Miliband, he fell into a bit of a trap. He was doing an interview with Laura Kuenssberg, and he got a bit mumbly and stumbly. Have a listen.
The biggest chunk, fuel duty, that goes to you in the government. So you're in control of the biggest chunk of the cost that people pay at the pump. So
that's why we've frozen fuel duty. That's why we've frozen fuel duty.
And if prices stay as high as they are, you're not going to put it up in September, are you?
Well, that's what... In a way, let me answer that by saying this, which is we don't know. I'll be candid with you. We don't know how long this conflict is going to go on.
No. But you do have other options. If we're only talking about the pie chart that is the divvying up of what happens to a litre of fuel, then over half of it already goes into the government pockets, and that doesn't include taxation on retailers and the like, which would also be, one would have to reasonably assume, included in the overarching take from a litre. Let's speak with Michael Simmons, economics editor at The Spectator. Michael, good afternoon to you. Look, I mean, it's been around for decades, isn't it? This sort of almost a national joke. We've even stopped moaning about the cost, generally speaking, or the cost, the amount that the government take, because we know that most of it goes into government coffers. So if they wanted to, they keep focusing on, you know, a little bit, this 10p rise or a freeze in duty, but actually the net is much bigger than that. I mean, the conversation should be bigger than that when it comes to fuel.
Exactly. And I actually think when you look at the price of petrol and diesel, fuel duty is a bit of a red herring here, because I think people have this idea that Rachel Reeves is getting a windfall from the increased costs. But that's not happening with fuel duty, because fuel duty is just a fixed price. You know, it's paid per litre of fuel. Where she is getting a windfall is on the VAT, right? The 20% VAT, because that's a percentage of the cost. And the amount of fuel is not, that people are buying, is not increasing. So she's not getting more money in her coffers from fuel duty, but as the price goes up, she will get more from VAT. So if people want to bring, you know, down the bit that's giving her this windfall, then I would say they should be going after the VAT on fuel rather than the fuel duty.
Yes, I mean, that would make perfect sense, and I would imagine the Treasury know that full well. But of course, the idea that they would start, because this kind of system has been in place for decades, Simon, Michael, I guess the problem then becomes, well, if you substantially dropped the price of, or the government take on a litre of fuel, you'd have to go elsewhere in the financial system to make it up.
Sure, and of course, this is the other problem. I mean, I was myself, I've been slightly disingenuous there talking about this tax windfall, because yes, she will have this extra tax coming up from the increased costs of fuel. But it's not like she's going to be able to do anything, you know, meaningful with it that improves public services or cuts taxes or anything like that. Because at the same time, the government gilt yield, the cost of government borrowing, is going up and up and up. So, you know, we don't have the exact numbers on this, but it's almost certain that any benefit the Chancellor is raking in from, you know, increased oil prices will soon be more than taken up by what she's having to pay to the market. Those debt interest payments. So that you're right to talk about it as, you know, a bigger economic picture. And the only way out of a cost of living crisis is not, you know, little cuts here, freebies here to try and make it more manageable. The only long-term solution is really rewiring the country for growth, growing our living standards so that less of household incomes are going on fuel, less is going on food, so that we've got more, you know, personal buffers to look after ourselves. And I think that's what's worrying, is this is a government that came into office saying growth was the only thing that mattered, and now they don't really talk about growth anymore at all.
It is, I've long thought, and I say this just as a layman in the sense of the sort of economic considerations of things, but we haven't really had meaningful growth since the sort of the early 2000s, I think I'd be right in saying, and certainly almost nada since the financial crash. And it's just not happened. And it does seem to me, without any qualification of saying it, but I think I'm right here, that you just touched on it, Michael. We've got to do something seismic, haven't we? Something, a complete recalibration of how we do business.
Yeah, we've got to do that, you know, everything, everywhere, and all at the same time. That means we need to be building loads, and we need to be expanding our energy capacity. We need to be getting rid of red tape. And you're right that all these things are kind of incremental, and it's not going to improve anyone's lives if we do a little thing here, and then in a few years we do another thing. We really do need a big bang where we change the country. But it's not just these policies. I think we need to change how we think about economics, because all these political debates of whether it's about fuel duty, whether about benefits, it's always about who should get which bit of the pie. It's not about growing the whole pie. right? And we need to change our psyche, I think, as voters, as well as people in politics, to say that is priority one. Let's have, you know, a bigger pot of money from which to run the country from, by which we need to, you know, get growth going by encouraging business, making a tax environment that's not anti-growth, getting, you know, spades in the ground on building projects, getting, you know, planning restraints out the way. But because we have been so stagnant for so long, it is not going to be fixed unless we do have this, you know, one day we just announce it all sort of thing. And what politician is offering that vision now?
It's funny, we touched on this yesterday. We mentioned the name Matt Clifford, you might be familiar with, entrepreneur and works in the AI field and, you know, done incredibly well. He talks about, and we did try to get him on we will at some point get him on, because he talks about the whole AI industry. That's obviously his area of interest. And how we could literally be world leaders in this. But it's going to take a lot of something or other, effort, consideration, knowledge, I don't know, from governments to make this happen.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And it's because, you know, as much as this country has like industrially declined and declined in many areas over the last few decades, we still do kind of lead the world in a lot of research, and we have a lot of the brains and the science behind these things. And what happens is that gets exported to America, where there's, you know, a better environment for these companies to start. So we need to do things to get these companies going here. We've got huge opportunities for data centers, for example. I mean, if you think of the gold rush, it's not the people looking for gold who made all the money, it's the people that made the pickaxes. And that could be the same with AI and data centers. But the problem is data centers require a lot of energy. And what's very expensive in Britain? Energy. So we need to solve that problem if we're to have an AI gold rush.
Indeed. Listen, great to have you on, Michael. Thank you for your time. Michael Simmons, he is the economics editor over there at The Spectator. Over to you. Loads more comments coming in. 0344 499 1000. That's where you'll find us. This in from Dan in Kent. Roadside burger bars, Ian. Being a trucker, I had to cut my little treat of a greasy snack to just once a week. On the bright side, I've lost some weight and I feel healthier. It really is. And we're not talking about people who don't work. When you talk about the cost of living crisis, previously, the image you'd have had in your head is a family who are struggling for whatever reason, not in employment, you know, how do you feed your family? Can you do anything else other than just manage to get a bit of grub together for meals? We're not talking about that now. I mean, for some time we haven't just talked about that. We're talking about working people who work damn hard, and everybody feels it. You just feel it a little later than other groups as you sort of shin up the monetary ladder, as it were. And that's just an obvious statement of fact, isn't it? But, you know, the middle classes would not feel it as quick as the working classes, and I'm talking in economic terms, not in any other meaning of those kind of categories. But everybody now is feeling it, and you cut something out. I've spoken to people who are talking about, you know, the usual buying a morning cup of coffee on the railway station. It might cost you £4 a day. That you go, okay, £4. It's a little treat. Before I get on the train, it's a cup of coffee. Okay. 20 quid a week, £80 a month, 80 quid a month. Wow. That's like your gym membership. Oh, speaking of that, I'm going to cut that down to off-peak. So it's 60 quid a month. There's all of these. And you're desperate, understandably, to counter this by going, hang on, it's the 21st century. Why are we going backward? We seem to be sort of going backwards on stuff. Here we are in 2026 going, what can we cut back on? It's the kind of Victorian mentality. Mary is in Cyprus. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Ian. How are you?
Very good, thank you. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you were talking about benefits.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say that when we moved to Cyprus, we were retirees, so we weren't looking for work. Mm-hmm. And we had to prove what our income was, that we could live here, because obviously we hadn't paid into the Cypriot government anything, and they weren't prepared to give us anything, which we felt was fair enough.
Yeah. That is fair enough. If you haven't, why would you be, why would it be okay to suddenly say, yes, you're entitled to everything when your contribution is zero?
Well, I mean, I don't think she would be. But at that stage, we weren't paying income tax here either, but we are now. But that doesn't mean that we are entitled to anything. In fact, where we live halfway up the mountain, but we aren't high enough up to even get a heating allowance in the winter. We're too many meters there. We're not up high
So
enough.
your meterage is, can you not put like a big chimney on the roof or something?
Well, we've got a wood log fire.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how to get your house taller so you can qualify for the allowance.
No, because we're about 10 kilometres.
All right, that would have to be a very tall house, wouldn't it, if you did that? I get it. Mary, thank you very much indeed for that. Great call. Margaret in Birmingham. I love my newspapers, but I had to cut back on papers and my favourite magazine. So I used to have 4 per day, then 3, now it's just 2. Is that 2 papers or 2 magazines? Margaret doesn't say what her favourite magazine is. Maybe it's Woman's Weekly. Does that still exist? Woman's Weekly still a thing? There was Woman's Weekly, there was Woman's Realm. Those 2 I remember. Are they still around? We shall investigate. This from Stevie in East Yorkshire says, Ian, you mentioned hours buying and help from the Bank of Mum and Dad. It's even worse. Let me tell you, the Bank of Mum and Dad is closed too, because we are affected as well. Yeah, that's a weird thing, isn't it? Because your mum and dad were meant to have gone through all of that stuff. You know, we've been through the bit where it hurts a bit, where you struggle, you know, we're now plateaued out to normality. And now Bank of Mum and Dad, as Stevie says, closed. Because, yeah, the bills are coming, the petrol, petrol, food, energy. You look at all of that. Your council tax, by the way. You know, mine's about 230 quid a month now. Something of that order. And you think, that's nowhere near the most expensive in this country. But when you're around about the 200 mark and your energy is in a similar department, and then the food thing driving me nuts. Because I don't know about you, but I do go through phases where a supermarket becomes almost like my fridge because you forget stuff. Last night it was milk. Oh, we're out of milk. I know what I'll do. I'll go to the supermarket. And so in I go, and of course you don't just buy milk when you're in the super. Oh yeah, we need some jam, some bagels or some other bready nonsense. And you've done 20 quid, and you think that's not even the shopping. That's in addition to the shopping. And you might do something similar on more than one occasion a week. So it's all of those little things. It's only when you look back and do that little search on your bank statement you realise how much you've given Sainsbury's or Tesco. Extraordinary. This one from No Name Given. If migrants have been here for many years, then why haven't they become British citizens, I'd say? Allow citizenship after, let's say, 10 years. If you're not citizens, no benefits. I suppose you could say, well, if we went to... Do you have to become... Is that the only way to do it? Because you might, like, you know, if I went to live in, I don't know, Spain or something, I wouldn't necessarily want to be a Spanish citizen. But I'd quite like to work there, living in a, a free world, if I found a job and I was contributing. One here says, I spent 2 weeks at a very nice hotel in Oman. They had a policy that if the sunbed was unoccupied for 30 minutes, then your towels would be removed. This seems to be a fair way to stop this lunacy that we see in the Med. But it has to be enforced. Yeah, that's the way to do it. And one here that comes in from Ian, we are giving up water, says Ian in Hampshire. Fair enough. Let's give up water. And that's what's happened. We're stopping using water. He encloses his bill, by the way, on that message. And one here from Betty, it's actually worse as they take 70... This is the government take on fuel. They take 78% of the oil and gas company profits in taxes and charges as well. £60 of a tonne or milliwatt delivered and consumed. Also, remember, diesel in the UK was always higher as it was a critical war stock. Brown then pushed us all to diesels as it was cheaper to make and higher margin for government taxes. No military now, no need for carbon taxes. All this extra cash will be used to pretend the economy is better, and it really isn't. 0344 499 1000. More from you on the way. 20 past 2. This is Talk.
Peter Capaldi!
It just so happens that it's all "you're amazing."
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one from Martin in Liverpool says, Ian, there are huge positive differences in the relationship between the Irish Republic and the UK compared to the UK's relationship with the EU. Completely free movement of labour between the two. Irish citizens have the same rights to social welfare fair voting, etc., as UK citizens and vice versa. It's like there is no border between us, and long may that continue. And of course, that predates the Good Friday Agreement and other areas too. And absolutely bang on from Martin. Yeah, that just makes common sense. We like it that way. We were talking about Antipodeans and the word Antipodean, which is a word called Steve in Bromsgrove. This is like one of those kind of highfalutin Radio 4 moments. We borrowed the word antipode over 600 years ago. It first appeared in a translation of a Latin text as a word designating, quote, men that have their feet against our feet, that is, inhabitants of the opposite side of the globe. So it's literally the feet, you turned it upside and all that. The word, which originated in Greek, combines anti, meaning opposite, with the root pod, meaning foot. Oh, pod, as in pied and all that, yeah. I like it. I love that. I've learnt something there today. Steve, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Cliff, who's in Slovakia on that issue, that tricky issue, Cliff, of benefits. What have you got for us? Afternoon.
Hello, Ian.
Hi.
Nice to speak to you. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so I moved to Slovakia 10 years ago, and when I got a very formal interview, then you have to have that interview within 15 days of arrival at the local police station.
Okay.
There's no immigration sort of niceties. It's down the neck. They grill you, and they want to know that you've got sufficient funds, as the lady from Cyprus was saying.
Yep.
So you don't have recourse to public funds, and in fact, you have no right at all to recourse to public funds. And that's it, basically. So I pay for my own healthcare and all that sort of stuff.
So you would not be entitled to anything, even though you're a taxpayer in Slovakia?
Well, I'm not because I don't work, because I'm retired.
Oh,
I'm not a taxpayer here. I do receive a pension from my employment, but that's paid, and the tax is paid in the UK. So, again, that's kind of a rope you can't slither under as well.
True. That's true. And
they've got it all wrapped up. I mean, to be honest, it makes a lot of sense to me. I've got no grievance with it whatsoever. I just don't understand why, piggyback Britain is just not aligned in some sort of tangibly sensible way in terms of all the money they're giving away.
I don't understand why it's become... I mean, why it's if I say I think the system that you've just described sounds like a perfectly reasonable and civilised one, there will be people in this country who will say, that's a terrible thing to say. We should be proud that well, I'm proud that we have a system that helps people in need, but I don't think having, a million people who come from another country claiming benefits. I understand if they're people that have been here for years and they pay in and are more or less they're just foreign by dint of their passport, then yeah, I get that, but that's not really what we're talking about here, is it?
Well, no, and if I didn't have the resource to my pension, I would be motivated to go and work, because I know I can't go down whatever the dole office looks like here and say, look, I need some money for this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So I've already agreed to remain here at my behest. They didn't ask me to come here. So there's no motivation for someone who turns up and say, well, look, there's no point working because you're going to get a lot more if you don't.
That's true. There used to be a line. I say there used to be a line. I don't know how well trodden it was, but there was I remember somebody raising the phrase, how do you make an Eastern European laugh? Tell them about the British benefit system, because people from many of those just couldn't believe. And I watched a programme where there was a woman, I think she was actually Russian, but she was sort of in that part of, just nipping on the heels of Europe. And she could not believe that in the UK they paid you when you had a baby. And she said when somebody first told her this, her and her friends who were having a delicious night of Russian vodka were almost on the floor laughing at this. It's like, what kind of government would give you money to have a baby? But of course, that's what we do. Now, we can look at that as maybe a civilised thing and that there's assistance for new mothers. I get that. But the overarching principle was that this is a relatively new phenomenon, this idea of governments are responsible for everyone, whoever they are, whenever they're there, and whatever age or circumstances they have.
Mm-hmm. I mean, things like public welfare here is available, of course, and they're very generous in terms of maternity leave and maternity pay, much more in terms of duration than the UK.
Yeah.
But, when I first came here, people would say, where you come from? And I've said, England. And they say, oh, why would you want to move to Slovakia from England? And now they say, oh, yeah, I understand that.
Why did you move to Slovakia, Cliff? What was the thinking?
Well, it's that crazy thing called love.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, my wife's Slav. So I'm very happy here. Best thing I've ever done, I think.
Yeah. Are you fully fluent now?
No, it's a very difficult language, mate, because they've got, for instance, a table is a man and a stool is a woman, and I kind of get that mixed up.
Yes, that's right. Love it. Listen, great to talk, Cliff. Thank you very much indeed for that. Love it. Mag says, I know we can't mention you-know-what today. Can't mention it at all. Tomorrow, though, is VE Day and Sir David Attenborough's 100th birthday. That's quite extraordinary, isn't it? So perhaps we might sort of celebrate both tomorrow. I think we could. I did see on social media a little clip of Engelbert Humperdinck. Now, this is weird because I can't fathom this. Finn, have you heard of Engelbert Humperdinck? Singer, yeah. Sam, yeah, indeed, yes. Did the Eurovision thing. Now, Engelbert Humperdinck, in my head, because he's been around forever, was at some point sort of up there with Tom Jones in terms of international kind of... And he had big, The Last Waltz, and there's a more famous Engelbert Humperdinck song. I can't remember what it is now. But anyway, quite a big deal. Anyway, but I saw a thing of him on social media, and he said, it's my, he was in somewhere in the sunshine, and he had a glass in his hand. He said, today is a very special birthday of mine. Thank you to everybody who, I was surrounded by friends. And I thought, he must be, trying to work out, I thought he must be 80. And apparently the bloke's 90. He's flipping 90, this fella. He was in right good nick, as my dad might have said. He really was. Fair play to the guy. I don't know what he does now. Drinks a lot of wine and very little, perhaps. David Attenborough is 100 tomorrow, of course. The global phenomenon that is Attenborough is 100, and he seems to be completely got all his what's-its in order, hasn't he? It's incredible, but still working as well. I'm sure we will have a nod to that tomorrow on the programme, because today we can't talk about that. But so tomorrow there'll be lots of talking about that tomorrow. Lots of it, including results. Oh, did I give it away then? You take the point. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And welcome back. Yes, it is Talk 25 to 3. Now, this is a beauty. George Kohler and his son Josh have successfully completed a remarkable, now this is, just listen to this, 400-day cycling adventure, logging over 16,000 miles across 30 different countries. And that, by the way, puts them in the record books, I think, for more than one reason. Both are with us now, Josh and George. Afternoon to you both. Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
Just tell us, I mean, there's all the obvious questions here. What was the idea? Were you cyclists beforehand, keen cyclists?
No, not at all.
No?
No. It was Josh's idea initially, and it goes back sort of 4 years. I'll let Josh explain.
Yeah, tell us why this all kicked off.
While I was still at school in sixth form, we had a talk from the explorer Leon McCarran, and he'd done a lot of cycling adventures, and he'd written a book about cycling across the US.
Yeah.
After the talk, I went home, bought the book, read the book, and said to Dad, that sounds like a great idea, why don't we give that a go? So we then made the plan to cycle across the US. Only problem was we didn't own bikes. We weren't cyclists, we'd never had been cyclists.
You started to plan a cycle journey, but without a bike. Yeah. I could see on the tick list where there was a failure.
Yeah, quite a big one. But we bought bikes. The first ride we did, I don't know, about 10 miles, and we were exhausted afterwards. It was a long way to go, but over about a year we trained up, and then we cycled from New York to San Francisco in 2022.
Wow.
We got back from that, both went our separate ways, and then about 2 years ago we came together and we thought, well, what can we do next which is bigger and better than cycling across the US? So originally the plan was to fly to Singapore and cycle home, and then we thought if we just add a couple more continents on, we can just go all the way around the world. And that's where the idea came to life.
It's mad, isn't it? I mean, it is one of those kind of sliding door moments, George, isn't it, in life? Where you
absolutely.
Because this must have, I mean, when people talk about bucket lists and, you know, to-do lists, I mean, this takes it to another stratosphere.
Yeah, and certainly we've been fortunate in having seen parts of the world that have been absolutely jaw-dropping. And, you know, just one of those would be on multiple people's bucket lists. And we've been through dozens of different places like that, from the
You're talking about Folkestone here, right?
Folkestone we missed. We did go to Harwich though. We went to Harwich.
I don't take this seriously at all now you've said that.
And got Portsmouth on the way back, which was that was
so what was your job? What is your job, George?
I started up a chimney sweeping business a couple of years ago, which allows us the flexibility to be able to do things like this, which is great.
Yeah. So from that, and Josh, you were out of university, I'm guessing? Or?
I never went to university, but I started travelling and became a travel filmmaker.
Right, so it
kind of went hand in hand with this
blog and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take this idea on, it's 400 days of cycling. Now, is that every day?
No, so we'd aim to have 1 or 2 days off a week, but we were quite flexible. You know, if we found somewhere we really liked and there's lots to see, then we would stay for a bit longer. And there's a couple of times we had more like a week off in different places when we needed more of a rest. And
were you knackered, George? I mean, did you have to? Because you know, it's not that. With respect to this incredible challenge, you're not doing the Tour de France. You haven't got to. You can choose your routes. You can choose your pace. You can do all of that. So, but nonetheless, I'd imagine it was still pretty grueling, right?
I think each day I'd take as it came. And there were some tough days. There were some exceptionally tough days. But you'd finish the ride off, have something to eat, get a good night's sleep, and then reset and be fresh again in the morning. And I think as we went through the ride, we became stronger and stronger. So to finish on Saturday, I felt fresh as a daisy by the time we'd completed.
And quite a lot fitter as well.
Yeah, I've lost a little bit of weight, and just feeling great for it.
And here's the thing, Josh. I mean, and I say this respectfully. You obviously love your dad to bits. He's your dad. But I reckon you probably will never, for the rest of your life, spend 400 days with. Most people would never spend 400 consecutive days with a parent. Even when you're a kid, you don't spend 400 days with a parent. But you've done that. I mean, was that ever a moment when you thought, you know, my bike's better than your bike?
Well, we had our moments.
Yeah, quite often had our moments.
Did you? I'm glad. You didn't say, I'm going this way.
Oh, maybe 1 or 2 times.
I'm going to Kathmandu. I'm going to Mogadishu.
But that's, you know, we're in a very high intensity environment, just the two of us, and like you said, you never ever really get to spend that much time just with a parent.
Of course you don't. Of course you don't. I mean, what a bond that is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in all the obvious senses. When you planned this, did you know, because obviously if you go to different countries, were you travelling around the kind of the outback, the sort of more isolated areas? Like if you're going through France, I mean, in my head, I'd want to be wheeling right under the Eiffel Tower. You know, I'd want to be, but obviously you can't always do things like that. So you got to circumnavigate a bit, but simultaneously you don't want to miss out the bits that really mark out the country.
Yeah, it's quite a balance to strike between all these amazing places that we could see. But we had to keep reminding ourselves we were cycling around the world, not all over the world. So you know, we've only done 31 countries. There's 195 in the world. Yeah. So we missed out on a lot of other areas. So try to pick a route that we could get around the globe in pretty decent order, but also see as much as we could. And we have seen some incredible sights. But I think more importantly, it's the people, regardless of the countries that we came across, who just gave us unconditional warmth, generosity, and friendship. Without exception. So
did they know you were coming? Because I mean, if you live in a remote village in a part of the world where not many people turn up, and then, you know, two white fellas on a bike suddenly show up, they probably think, what the heck is going on here? Are we on a hidden camera show? What was going... So did anyone... Were they aware in certain areas there was something going on? Did you just turn up in places?
Yeah, we would just show up, and especially in the places like China, where they use a completely different social media network to us. So yeah, we would show up. You can't
get your social media, can you?
We would show up in these little villages, and we'd be welcomed with open arms, and everyone would be so fascinated by what we were doing. And also, one of the things about travelling by bike is you come across quite vulnerable, which also invites people to come and talk to you and offer you accommodation, offer you food, offer you drinks.
If you turn up in China in a tank, you get a very different...
Absolutely.
And you don't make it out the other end.
Being on the Tibetan plateau, and we stopped for a bite to eat. And these two Tibetan monks suddenly appeared out of nowhere, all dressed in their traditional orange garb, and produced bottles of water and pots of yoghurt. Sat down.
That's a Netflix show, surely.
Watch this space.
Waiting to happen, isn't it? Yes. Thank goodness for the monks. I mean, but those sort of experiences in each country, there was something different, I guess, Josh.
Oh yeah, and you couldn't even possibly imagine what's going to happen. It all just Yeah, it's incredible.
Was there anywhere where you thought, oh, I'm not so sure this is going to be? You know, did you have to? You know, the Foreign Office website says don't go to this country, don't go to that one. Did you take heed of all of that and avoid and swerve those areas?
Yeah, so we would check the website, and we didn't go to anywhere that was red listed.
Yeah.
The one place where I guess kind of has a negative view from is South America. A lot of people sort of said, oh, is that going to be safe to us before we went? And we were unsure ourselves anyway, but we didn't experience any negative fatigue there. It was all, everyone welcomed us with open arms.
I'm so glad you did that, because once in a while we do read a story, don't we, of a Brit that kind of just went, you know, well, nobody told me Afghanistan wasn't safe. I thought the Taliban HQ was part of the Four Seasons group, you know, that kind of stuff. But you swerved all of that, and that was amazing. You had a great time. Multiple types of weather, I'd imagine, as well, doing this.
Yeah, everything from waking up in Europe and the bottles are frozen solid. In the morning, you got frost on the saddle, so below zero, through to mid-40-degree heat in the middle of the desert.
Wow.
With everything in between: monsoon rains, hailstorms, severe winds. And you just have to deal with it as they come.
And what about accommodation? What did you do in that respect? Did you take tents? Did you stay in hostels, hotels?
A complete mixture of everything. Yeah, we've stayed in pretty much every kind of accommodation imaginable, and also we were welcomed in by a lot of strangers. A lot of people that have been following our journey invited us to stay with them, so we've stayed with countless numbers of families in all corners of the planet, which has just been fantastic.
What about hassle with the bikes, punctures, that kind of stuff?
We have had a few issues with the bikes, which is to be expected when they're going through the
No matter how well you look after a bike.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's consumable bits that we had, I think, 7 punches in total.
That's not bad,
which is not bad, and that was only in Brazil and China. Everywhere else was fine. And chains needing replacing, pads, that sort of thing. So But we had great support throughout by the company that made the bike. So you know, they've been superb.
When you started doing this, did you do this to get in the record books, or was this just a happy kind of addition to the journey?
It was a happy addition, actually. When we went firm on going on the trip, started doing the research to find out who'd done it before as a father and son, and couldn't find any sort of note anywhere about it. Looked on the Guinness website to see if there was anything on there, nothing at all. So applied to Guinness, look, we're planning to do this, does it qualify? And they wrote back and said, yep, we officially recognise this as a world record attempt for 2 records at the time, as the longest distance cycled and the fastest circumnavigation on bicycle, and it was the first, by nature the fastest. And then they added the 3rd, which is the most countries travelled. So that was almost the icing on the cake, but it was always the intent to do the global trip.
So that'll be in the bumper Christmas present list of next year, in the 2027 Guinness Book of Records.
I think we just missed the publication, so it's going to now be 2028. So
that's
just
wait a year. Very disrespectful. Yeah, they do work quite a lot in advance. Don't they? So, but that is amazing. So there was no, in all of it, Josh, was there any part of it where you thought, I love it, but I wish I hadn't undertaken. It's too much. It might not be, whether it's physically, mentally. Was there any point when you thought, I want to go home?
Definitely. I mean, we knew it was going to be a physical challenge. Yeah. We knew there was going to be mental challenges. I think the thing that both Dad and I weren't expecting was the emotional challenges that come with this. I mean, going back to spending this much time just with one other person, especially when it's your father, it does get. There were points where the emotional side of things just completely took over, and it was a struggle. But how we see it is this: we chose to take on this challenge, and we chose the hardships that come with an adventure like this. Whereas we're raising money for UNICEF, and one of our biggest motivations was the children that we're raising money for. They don't get a choice in the challenges they face every day. So that kind of motivated us on when things got tough to keep going.
So you've raised a few quid.
We've raised a few quid, yeah. I think 68,000 was where it was at last time we looked. So it's ticking on quite nicely.
You see, if you do a long bike, most people at the end of a long bike, I've got a couple of mates who do quite a lot of cycling, and they're very fit and but they always say at the end of the day, I want to get home and have a beer. Now I'm sure there were times when you could do that, but obviously you're going to be cycling the next day as well, so you've got to be careful. You don't want to go nuts in a bike.
Absolutely. It's a lot of the countries we went through, it wasn't a choice anyway.
Of course,
and some that we did go through, we tend to get tired, so may have a beer and knock it on the head and go to bed. But you can't be wobbly the next day. It gets too emotional.
So what next then? I know that's the obvious question people ask you. Do you do another cycle thing? Do you do it on a unicycle? Do you do it? I mean, what do you some other mode of transport? Some other challenge even? What do you think, Josh?
We haven't thought of anything just yet, but I'm sure we will. We'll get bored in a couple of months' time and think of another crazy idea to attempt.
And Joel, you said you're a chimney sweep.
Yep.
You didn't take your brooms with you, did you?
No, tempting as it was.
Clip them on the side of the old bar, I mean, there might have been a chance for a bit of extra work on the way. Did it compromise your thoughts in that sense? Did you think, I want to do something else now? I want to, like this cycling thing, I've got a bug that I never thought I'd have.
No, not really. It was always about the overall purpose that we're aiming for, and for us, cycling is just a means to an end. It's as you said at the start, we're not avid cyclists, but it is the best way to see a country. So to do a journey such as this, when you want to get the most out of experiencing a country firsthand and still cover a lot of mileage, the cycling was the obvious route to do. But I'm not somebody that will be up every morning and go out for a bike ride just for the sake of having a bike ride.
Did you jump red lights like cyclists do wherever you went around the world? Is it an international language of two wheels, or is it just over here?
It's just over here. We've noticed it a lot over here.
Just tell us where people can go and look at and find out about your fundraising and all the rest of it. Is there a website? Is there a social media account? Where's the best place?
The best way to do it is just to Google Father and Son Cycling the World. All of our social media, the Just Giving page will all pop up.
It'd be really annoying if somebody else's names pop up, wouldn't it? What are they doing in 2028? How dare they? Guys, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you, Josh. George, thank you.
Thank you.
The time is coming up on 9 minutes to 3. This is Talk.
just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one comes in from Engelbert. I love this. It says, please release me, let me go. If you weren't listening before, that makes no sense. But if you were, you'll know what I'm saying. So Last Waltz, please release me. Big, huge international, global hits for Engelbert. I'm glad he's messaging the show as well. This will be... we'll talk to George in just a second. We've got the Voice of Doom Day 2. Day 2 of the Voice of Doom. I don't know who this is, by the way, but apparently the guys tell me it's not the hardest one we've done, so somebody must know. Remember, it's a mystery voice. It's political, so you're looking for a politician, left-wing or right-wing, young, old, dead or alive. Who is this?
The voice of a Britain.
I can tell you it's not Nick Clegg. It does sound like Nick Clegg. It's not Nick Clegg. It was the most guessed name yesterday. It's not Nick Clegg. So who is this?
The voice of a Britain.
And again.
The voice of a Britain.
87222. It's the only way to take part. 87222 if you know who this is.
The voice of a Britain.
And if we get a right answer, we'll tell you after the news. George is in Dundee. Back to that benefit conundrum. George, afternoon to you.
Hi, how are you doing, Ian?
Very good, thank you. Far away.
It's the something caught my attention when you said earlier, are politicians just frightened to say we are paying out too much to migrants?
Yeah.
They're not frightened, Ian. They're just clueless. This type of thing does not affect them. So when the benefit system inevitably goes belly up, I would think fairly soon, it will not affect them. It'll never affect them. They'll never be benefit claimants. But a large proportion of this country will be, whether you include state pension, universal credit, and all the rest of it. So it does affect us. So we need a benefit system. We need a safety net. Politicians don't. So if it goes belly up, they don't really care. They're unaffected by it.
Yeah.
And I think at the next election, whoever wins, the whole benefit system is under threat. And if they're paying out these billions of pounds to people who have not paid a sweet dime in, that should be the first thing to go, and it should go tomorrow. When everybody else is.
But why would anybody? You see, there's lots of people. Every time this comes up, you always get somebody, George, on the left, as you know, who will go, "Yeah, you can't say that. You're using migrants as a target, etc." No, that's just fair, isn't it? It's what you said is fair. It's not controversial.
I'm using somebody that has not paid a penny in as a target. Ian, I'm a benefit claimant. I claim carers allowance, as I've probably mentioned in the past, right? But I paid higher rate tax at 40 and 42% for 25 years,
Wow.
I paid higher rate tax. So I think I'm not entitled, that's the wrong word. I've got a clear conscience claiming carers allowance.
Well, and you should be allowed to.
Because what I paid in. But if people just rock up here and they, month one, are able to claim universal credit, I mean, why are we bringing in people to do jobs, or people arrive here that the job doesn't pay them enough not to claim universal credit, or they get away with working 16 hours a week? It should be, you want to come here and work, you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
But you ain't entitled to benefits. I would say 5 years. Once you've paid in 5 years, that should be enough as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And that sounds fair.
You're a benefit to society. What I would also say, to lighten things up, Ian. Favourite board game, Risk. Favourite sweetie, Caramel Log. And probably best theme tune, Blue Peter.
Love it. Blue Peter, now there's a curveball I wasn't expecting, but I get it. George, thank you. George in Dundee, who threw that in because we were talking earlier about, it doesn't matter, I won't repeat the whole thing, but yeah, because we can't talk about that subject today. We were randomising the kind of stuff that might just come up, and the old retro road is a path well trodden in radio phone-in terms, and George politely joining in with the spirit of that. He didn't mention Spangles, though, did he? Or Chewits, or Texan Bars, or Fangs Crisps. Can you still get Skips? Yeah, you can, can't you? 0344... Don't call him with that, by the way. 0344 499 1000. Let's get the news at 3 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, you better believe it, because there is an absolute rammed agenda at this, and we are responding, of course, to those stats from the Work and Pension Department. For the first time, they've divvied it up and worked out how many migrants are claiming universal credit. It's quite an extraordinary number. Nearly 1 in 6 of the 9 million that claim universal credit are actually foreign-born migrants. Now, some of them might have been here a long time and pay their taxes and just need to claim once in a while. For others, that's not quite the case. What we do know is the total bill is 12 billion quid for that one group. Kerching for those. Thoughts on that? Do we just ban non-Brits from benefits? Is that the answer? 0344 499 1000. Also, Labour's favoured think tank has told Rachel Reeves to cut fuel duty by 10p to offset rising oil costs. The Chancellor is being urged to implement temporary measures after pump prices rocketed since the start of the Middle East conflict. Because we're talking seriously about the cost of living. We ain't just discussing petrol pumps. That's almost like a distraction. Look over there, the cost of fuel. Yeah. What about all the other stuff? What about my pasta? What about the heating my house? Don't be distracted, but as an earner even, what have you noticed you've had to cut back on or cut out altogether? 0344 499 1000. It's 5 minutes after 3 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call, or of course, number to leave a voice note on. Although I should say we're having some temporary fixes done on the phone system at the moment, which apparently is going to take 11.5 minutes. You can message 87222. Now, what about the Middle East? We were talking just a second ago that the conflict continues, but a leaked memo does suggest President Trump is optimistic about ending the Iran conflict following his offer of concessions, including permitting Tehran to eventually resume uranium enrichment to the levels previously set out by the Obama-era deal. Let's have a listen to the president.
Want to make a deal badly, and we'll see if we get there. If we get there, they can't have nuclear weapons. It's very simple. But what's not to submit? So they had a Navy with 159 ships, and now every ship is blown to pieces and lying at the bottom of the water. They had an Air Force, lots of planes, and they don't have any planes. They don't have any anti-aircraft. They don't have any radar left. Their missiles are mostly decimated. And we have to get what we have to get. If we don't do that, we'll have to go a big step further. But with that being said, they want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal.
Wow. So they got nothing, but they can enrich uranium. Now, I don't know much about uranium, but I would imagine enriching it is probably a path to doom. Let's speak to our uranium expert. That is Michael Graham, a US commentator, managing editor of Insider. He's our go-to man for uranium every time. So listen, that's
just because I'm always glowing when I'm on your show, Ian.
That's what
it does.
That's
it
what
brings
it
it out in me.
Absolutely bang
Absolutely.
on. I was a bit worried to read this because there's a load of stuff that does make sense, and I get what Donald Trump does, and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. At the beginning of all of this, we're going to get rid of this pesky regime because they're horrible Islamists and they're plotting to overtake the Middle East, if not the world. They want to blow Israel off the map. These are not the good guys. And as we fast forward, as Donald Trump said, they got no planes, no boats, and nowhere to hardly live for the government. But the same kind of people still run the place, and now they're being told we're pretty cool about the uranium thing.
Yeah, watch it. This is a roller coaster ride on top of a roller coaster ride. So you're riding on a car that's on another car. So you just have to, I think the smart thing to do is go past the kind of day to day and look at the trajectory. And the trajectory has been a steady increase of pressure on Iran. And Iran, for example, we wrote in Inside Sources that when Iran said we're shutting down the Straits of Hormuz, that this was game over for them. Because when you're the hostage taker and you shoot your hostage, you got nothing left.
Yeah.
And that's they got nowhere to go. And so now they've shown the world we're always going to be a potential hostage taker. Do you want to live in this world? And then America responded the right way with the blockade. The question that everyone has, I think, and I assume this is your question too, is can Trump stick? Can he keep the pressure going? Yeah. Can he stand the higher gas prices? And the answer is nobody knows. I just watch this and I don't know. I will say though the thing that frustrates me the most is it's hard to get people to start with what's the one thing we know. We know that for almost 50 years now, Iran has been funding terror that's killed people, not just in the Middle East. They've killed people at synagogues in Australia and in Europe. They pay people to kill people. They gave Al-Qaeda cover during the Al-Qaeda terror days. They have the Islamist whack job covers now. Hezbollah, Hamas. Everyone knows they are kind of like Nazi light. They're not as bad as the Nazis were because they're not as big and not as powerful.
They're in the ballpark.
They have the same ideology, and if they were content to live inside their borders and be the whack jobs who, beat women for showing their ankles and throw gays off of buildings, the world could go on. But they're not content. They want to spread their revolutionary vision, and they want a nuclear weapon so that they can spread it without punishment and kill who they want, and obviously wipe Israel off the match, what they have said 1,000 times. So every day that Iran has a bad day is a good day for the 21st century in civilization. And that's the premise I start with, and then I go along with Trump for this crazy ride.
I'm kind of with you on that, because I understand it. I mean, the world would be no poorer without the kind of extremist Islamist regime that has been running the place for decades now, and of course those people that have that kind of ideology, their mind is always on expansion, and whether they're exporting terrorism, which, as you correctly say, I mean, this is the greatest country of sponsored terrorism on the planet. So we've all got a skin in the game on this, right? Because we've all been affected in various ways by this. So yeah, get rid of them. Absolutely right. Get it back to what it once was and what it could be. This nice secular sort of forward-thinking country that could have a great place.
Nobody cares if they're secular. Nobody cares what they think. It's their behavior. They insist. But remember, this isn't the first time. In the 1980s, they shut down the straits, and America lost ships, reopening the straits for the world. We took almost the entire burden. We paid almost the entire price, and we got the straits open for the world. They've screwed with oil markets over and over again. There are everything they've done is something they could have done a year ago, but with more missiles and a live nuclear program. So my question to the critics of Trump, and I'm a longtime critic of Trump, my question to the critics is, so what's your plan?
Yeah.
Because I haven't heard anyone with a plan other than, well, Iran gets a nuke and then that's that. We just have to do whatever they say. That's not my plan.
Is there a sense, Michael, though, that Trump has got himself in a kind of pincer movement here? He's taken it to a certain level, and I don't think it would just be a Trump thing. I think anyone that tries to tackle the complexities of the region and what you're up against would find themselves in somewhat of a kind of cul-de-sac at some point. So now it's a case of finding the best way of some bad options out. Is that his thinking?
It could be his thinking. I hope not. There's one option that's on the table that's rarely discussed, and that option is victory. Just keep beating the crap out of the Iranians.
Well, that's very true.
You've already got them by the throat. I'll pick a body part I can use on broadcast TV. You got them by the throat. Don't let them go. It's their economy. The guy who's part of the energy committee for the Iranian Chamber of Commerce told the New York Times, this blockade is worse than every military attack we've suffered. We've got them. Hold them until they give up and they say fine. And I want to ask you this. I would define this as a victory. All of the uranium that they processed out, we actually fly it out of the country. They agree to spot inspections by the IAEA, I think I'm saying that right. And if they don't agree, military response already on the table. And they stop sending money, wealth, etc., to Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. If those three things happen, I don't care if they're run by Ayatollah Khomeini or Captain Crunch. I say we're good. Would you consider that a victory for Israel and America?
Yeah, I would say it's a different victory to the one we might have thought. However, that would, I could see how that would work. What I suppose the problem is, would they agree to that?
No, here's what it is. I think the thing that will save Trump, my theory about Trump is, as bad as people think he is, his enemies find a way to be worse. Like they always find a way to be so ugly or overplay their hand or be so stupid, whatever. If Iran weren't run, and this is my first point, you can't have a large 100 million people, oil-rich, crazy country with nukes. You just can't. The world won't work that way, and they are crazy. If they weren't crazy, they'd have cut a deal already. They'd have said, forget this nuclear stuff. We'll take all your money. Lives will be great. Same thing with Hamas in Gaza. Gaza could be on its way to becoming a gem on the Mediterranean. All of your posh friends could be there. Honeymoon. They chose instead to build 16,000 miles of tunnels because they want to kill the Jews. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think Trump is going to be forced to finish the job because Iran is crazy and they are not willing to concede things that they should be willing to concede if they weren't crazy.
Has he got his eye on the midterms? Now, as a president, you would always have a bit of an eye on the midterms, probably from day one when you start your job in the White House. It's always there. It's always lingering over. There are inevitably predictable results, things that happen midterm that wouldn't happen in a wider general election. And, of course, governments tend to get a bit of a kicking midterm as well. Now, naturally, this would be pivotal, some might say, to midterms, because, of course, this is somewhat defining of Donald Trump.
Sure. So it's like the Iran thing. It kind of works both ways. The first reaction is, let's just get out, go home, and it'll be over. And then it's months, the election's not till November, blah, blah, blah. But the other probably smarter theory is you have to win. If you want to have any hope of having a good midterm, you have to win. I don't know how British voters are, but I will say something that I've learned over the last 20 years watching American voters. You get no credit. So, for example, we had you remember the border under the Joe Biden days? We literally would have 10,000 people illegally cross the border a day. We haven't had 10,000 people illegally cross the border since Trump got back in office that entire time. It's down to nothing. Yeah. And you know what his poll numbers are on immigration? Meh, because there was like, yeah, that's old. You already fixed that. What have you done for me lately? Yeah. And so I think there's only two options for Trump on the midterms. If you lose Iran, it will hurt you even more, and you're never going to hold the House of Representatives. If you win in Iran, you won't get any credit, but at least you won't go backwards. And maybe it'll boost your base. They'll feel good that they were part of a victory, but that's about it. Yeah.
I just happened to go down a bit of a rabbit hole as we do in this job, Michael. You know, because this wasn't entirely new news to me, but I didn't realise it was quite such an issue. I mean, Democrats can talk about, not subjugating other people's lands, but boy, do they like to subjugate a voting district. And that word, gerrymandering came up, which I also, by the way, had no idea where the word came from until last night. Didn't know this was the governor of Massachusetts and had no idea, the map and the shape of it and all the rest. So I found all of that out last night, but I didn't realise quite how pivotal this problem was, because the Dems are shifting territory all over the place politically.
Right. So let's be clear. It's both sides. This is it's the classic hypocrisy. Everybody wants every seat you can. And so if you think about it, if you've got a room with half red, half blue, and you can draw it into 4 boxes, and you can put more blue in 3 of them, then you get a 3-to-1 benefit as opposed to a 2-to-2 tie, which is probably what it is. And so that's how it works. It's all about map making to give yourself. What do you care if the one red box is 90% red? Yes. That gives you 3 other boxes where they're barely red and your blue dominates. And so that's both ways. There's no my frustration with gerrymandering is there's no solution for it, because one argument is, well, we'll just have a computer draw the maps. Well, we're supposed to be a democracy, et cetera. The second argument is, and then some states have tried this. In fact, Virginia, you just mentioned Democrats, Virginia had the people passed a law that said, we're going to have this independent committee. It's going to be, fair and balanced. And it drew really the state slightly purple, and it had like a 2-seat advantage for the Democrats. It was very reflective where they were. But then the Democrats just went back and said, okay, we're going to throw out their map and put in our map, because always in the end, in a democratic process, people have the final say. And if the people want crazy maps, the people can have crazy maps. But it is embarrassing when you admit what I have to do to win is pick my own voters, because if I let all the voters vote, they're not going to vote. They're not going to.
And I get the principle, because I think it's something. What is it? Every 5-10 years or whatever,
every 10 years.
Every 10 years, an area can return to it, and they say, look, things change, people move around, areas expand, and we have to reflect. So we all notionally, I get the point, but of course it is heavily for political reasons that local politicians.
But then again, you guys let your politicians pick whether they want to represent. I remember, like, Winston Churchill just went to a town and said, I'm going to be your whatever. Well, he actually was in both parties. I'm going to be your guy now. So I guess that's your version. Yeah.
You could show up at the next general election, Michael, and offer to be the mayor of London.
Do you want to be the smartest person in the UK about gerrymandering?
Go on. Have you got a great fact?
The Massachusetts governor who drew that map that looked like this weird bird, and they called it the gerrymander. His name was Elbridge Gerry. It's
Gary,
I did
read that.
If you want to be really obnoxious and annoy people, pronounce it Gerrymander.
And then people
because
will go,
it both sounds stupid and makes you look like you're telling everyone else that they're stupid. So it's a win.
So
it's the kind of thing that Ted Heath would have done.
That's a great thing to do, isn't it? It's a great thing to do. When you're around political people and just say, I think there's some gerrymandering going on. And they will all snigger at you over their glass of fizz and say, I think you'll find
it's the thing like, okay, I know you're right.
And then you can correct them again. Yes, spot on. I love it. Listen, Michael, let's talk again very, very soon. Lots to talk about stateside and, of course, correlations with this country. We didn't even get on to Trump and Starmer and the King. Always good to have Michael Graham on with us, US commentator, managing editor of Inside Sources. 0344 499 1000.
Peter Capaldi!
It just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, 22 minutes after 3 o'clock. This in from Sharon, who says, Ian, as we can't talk about the thing, I've been trying to cleanse my mind and found myself wondering whether there really is another Sphinx hiding in the Giza Plateau. Also, that I still don't understand how video cassette tapes worked, and that my headmistress from primary school used to give us a spangle when we finished a book. Thank you for the cleanse. I love that, because there's quite a lot in. There's quite a lot in that. Teachers giving out spangles, of course, would never. In fact, you don't. Can you get spangles? Can you still get tunes? The cough things, cough sweets, tunes. You familiar with those guys? No. Finn's going no, like he's 14. No. I thought you could still get tunes, like a sort of an early day locket, I suppose. Chewits you can get, yeah. Can you still? No, you can't get chewits. Can you get chewits? I think those sort of frutella. They're called frutellas, aren't they? There's a bit. They're like they're kind of like a scam chewit, to be honest. That's how I would define it. They do slightly punch above their weight, frankly, but like a Freddo. They're like a Freddo of the chew world. We're down the path. How video cassette tapes worked? That's a very good question, isn't it? Of all the things we marvel at in terms of inventions and innovation, there's a couple of things that have always... I still think the fax machine is more mind-blowing than email in a curious way. You consider what it does and when it did it. You draw this little picture and stick it in this thing, and a bloke over there gets the same picture. What? That's sorcery. That's not technology. And similarly, I suppose, the video cassette tapes. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't give you a mini lecture on how they might work. I do like the idea of another Sphinx being in the Giza Plateau, though. I mean, we're in we're in almost David Icke territory with that one. Thank you very much, Sharon, for that. A bit of light relief. Now, let's talk about the Met Police and the... well, certainly what their response is likely to be to what is happening with many attacks on the Jewish community. Don't let anybody try and play this down, by the way, because it's not only a big issue, it's still, I would contend, a growing issue and a very perilous position we are in right now. Let's speak with Gary Mond, chairman of the Reform Jewish Alliance. Gary, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, Met Police deploying 100 additional officers in a kind of a new community protection team. Yep, that's great. Is it enough? Will it do what needs to be done?
It's welcome, but it's not enough. We need to see willpower coming from government. We didn't see any from the last government under Rishi Sunak, and we haven't seen any from this government under Keir Starmer. They don't seem to want to address the whole issue of anti-Semitism. They talk nicely. They fawn on the Jewish community, saying, you've got our back. We are your supporters. We love you. But when it comes to action, we see precious little. And the sort of action we want to see is to address the whole gamut of issues of anti-Semitism in our society, in schools, in the NHS hospitals, at university, in places of work, and in the world of entertainment. Anti-Semitism has come to pervade our entire society. Yeah. And I'm afraid that our government doesn't seem to want to legislate or actually see that the law is properly enforced in so many areas of Jew hatred.
It is. Yeah. I was just going to say, Gary, it's quite extraordinary. I know we don't live our life through social media, but sometimes social media does provide quite clear, demonstrable evidence of people whose... look, if you had a Jewish guy standing in the street, or a Jewish Israeli guy, more specifically, standing in the street with a placard saying, I support Benjamin Netanyahu and what he's doing in Gaza is absolutely correct. I can understand why somebody who might be from a different part of the Middle East and a different religion might want to have a row with that person, might want to debate the facts. But the idea that somebody just happens to be Jewish somehow represents everything is not only... I mean, frankly, stupid, but it's anti-Semitic in its very essence, because that's what's happening to Jews, isn't it? You are Jewish, therefore you are responsible for this, this, this and this. I know loads of Jews that don't like Israel, or don't like Israel under Netanyahu. That's a democracy, right? But what's happening here to Jews seems to be a kind of catch-all idea that anyone who happens to be Jewish, and if you're Israeli and Jewish, it's clearly even worse, then they are completely legitimate targets for, at best, to be shouted at loudly in the streets, and at worst, attacked and often their life taken or an attempt on their life.
Yes, well, the case we've heard of in the last 24 hours is nothing short of attempted murder. And I hope that the perpetrators are going to be caught, apprehended, and sent to jail for a long time. I'm not sure whether that's going to happen, though, but I hope so. We are in a situation where Jew hatred has totally taken over in so many respects. And always there is emphasis on Jews and Israel. I mean, the best example is at that pop concert in Glastonbury, where they were shouting death to the IDF.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever hear them shout death to the Russians who'd invaded Ukraine? Of course you didn't. The focus is entirely on Jews.
Yeah.
And Israel is attacked because Israel is seen as a Jewish state. It is anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, pure and simple, and that has to be dealt with. Now, I've given you a number of examples before of areas of public life where Jews are under the threat. Where's it all coming from? I'm afraid it's coming largely from fundamentalist Islam and from some of the countries in the world who wish to actually support that, notably Iran. And I think that the idea of sending the Iranian ambassador home, getting the Muslim Brotherhood prescribed, getting the IRGC prescribed would be good steps to take.
It's quite extraordinary how much of a... look, the Met are saying, and the Met under, one would assume, some fierce instruction from the Home Office, trying to almost play catch-up with this, saying, you know, we're on it. But this has been given a free pass for so long. Yes. And I know I always mention the David Baddiel book, Jews Don't Count, but, I mean, that very title kind of defines exactly what we're talking about. It's not taken as serious as other forms of racial abuse.
And of course, we had the situation since October 23 of these tremendously provocative hate marches that have been happening on such a regular basis. I know that the previous government, or Suella Braverman in particular, tried to do something about it, but was stopped from doing so by her fellow cabinet ministers and by the civil servants. So we don't seem to be making any progress in any area of trying to solve the anti-Semitism problem. And I actually think that, I know that in Australia they have a commission where they're looking at a whole series of legal steps that are going to be taken to try to resolve the problem there. We don't even have that because there isn't really acknowledgement of where the problem is coming from. I think that is the key issue. I don't think the Prime Minister actually acknowledges what is the cause behind this. They perhaps try to evade it.
Do you sense that there might be, Gary, a corner about to be turned here? Are we moving into a place and the conversation and the response that could at least begin the process of dealing with this properly, rather than a kind of tokenistic, platitudinous press statement from politicians or leaders elsewhere?
I wish I could answer in the affirmative to your question, but I don't feel I can. I feel there's a great deal of fawning on the Jewish community, both from there wasn't from the previous government and there is from this government, saying we've got your back, but in the end of the day, they don't do anything about it. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of hyped up talk in the last week since the previous atrocity. I just hope that I'm wrong. I hope that there is some action taken. But I'm very fearful that there won't be, or there'll be something taken, for example, increasing security, or maybe extra monies for the CST. All very nice. But will that last? And will it be effective? And is it sufficient? And I think it's horrendously insufficient. I think that we actually need a number of serious actions taken, and actual actions taken at law and by government.
Gary, on that point, great to have you on. Very powerful stuff, and let's keep in touch and speak again. Gary Mond is the chairman of the Reformed Jewish Alliance. Thank you to him. On a lighter note, we kind of jested a little earlier about the fact that I did just go over this, but because we can't talk about that thing today, you know, the big news story, can't talk about that. And invariably, phone-based radio does go into a kind of retro vibe of, do you remember Spangles? What's your favourite sweet? What was your favourite board game? Your favourite TV show? What would you bring back? Do you remember this element of popular culture? Who remembers Run Around with Mike Reed? You know, that kind of stuff. And even just by raising it, it actually does enamour many of you to respond to it. Reg says, Ian, my favourite chocolate bar is a Star Bar. I'm not so sure. Do you know what I had again at the weekend? I'm slowly coming round to it being the best chocolate bar of all time, and that is a Boost. Finn? No, I'm getting I got 100% negative from the room next door. I tell you what, whack one of those in your gob tonight, and you will have a very different view tomorrow morning. And he says, Kaplunk was my favourite TV show. Kaplunk was my favourite game, and my favourite TV show theme was Minder. Yeah, you'll get no argument from that. That really did spell Monday night, didn't it? Minder, 9 o'clock, ITV. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Yes, good afternoon. Just a little bit of breaking news. This is according to the Telegraph. They can reveal that a balaclava-clad man has been arrested after allegedly threatening Andrew Mountbatten Windsor close to his new home. The incident occurred at 7:30 last night, Wednesday night, near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, while the former prince was out walking his dogs. We'll bring you more on that if we find out more. I'm sure there'll be some kind of police statement at some point. Now, let's move on. A lot to talk about here. Yesterday, Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary, of course, called for a ban on the sales of alcohol before early morning flights. Although not on his own flights, I did notice. Which would mean, of course, the end to that sort of 6 a.m. airport pint, which many people partake in. Now, Wetherspoon's boss, Sir Tim Martin, who owns many of those bars, has hit back at the proposal, calling it a Big Brother approach that could lead to passengers being breathalyzed. Lisa Minnow is the travel editor at The Sun, who joins us. Nice to see you, Lisa. You've done more airports and travel than most humans should even be allowed to do over your long career in travel journalism. So you're there all the time. So it's kind of like catching a train to you. But it is. I've only done this thing once, and oddly, it was on a press trip. No surprise, a load of journalists went to a bar. And I think some people do that bath because you're at the airport, your flight's at 6, so it's like the first one of the day. You're there at 4. And there's a pub open. It looks a bit weird. And I think with us, somebody just went, should we go for a pint? It was a bit of a novelty. It was the most horrific pint I've ever had, because it was like I was in bed 45 minutes before.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that in any other day of the week, would you?
I mean, I think for me, I'm partial to a Bloody Mary. I think that's acceptable.
That's 100% what you should have.
First thing in the morning, because it's still got tomato based. You've got a bit of sort of healthiness going on.
Yeah.
But I think whatever way you look at it, really what was wrong was for Ryanair or Ryanair's boss to suggest that it was everybody else's fault. If you look at the rules and regulations, it is the airline's legal duty to make sure that nobody boards a plane when they are intoxicated. Now, if they spent slightly less time at the boarding gate, the Ryanair check-in staff, working out how big your bag is and if they're going to have to sort of charge you some extra money, and a bit more time looking at the passengers, not the bags, they might be able to sort of prevent some of this happening. But I think it's also not the case to say that it is just an early morning flight that is an issue.
Good point.
They might, the one and only time that I've ever seen a real sort of like fight break out on a plane, it was quite serious. A woman assaulted one of the crew, the plane crew. That was a late night flight. It was a sort of probably about 9 o'clock at night.
I would have thought there's more chance of hassle later in the day.
You've got exactly that. You've got more time to have actually had a few drinks. And there is an element of, you do understand that when there are significant delays at airports, yes, most people will wander over to a bar to have a drink. There's not an awful lot else to do in an airport, is there, apart from drink or shop?
Well, that's true.
So it's more just the fact that, that there are ways to deal with this, and it should involve the airline as well. That being said, they have got more incidences than ever before, but then we're flying more people than ever before. We're flying more affordable flights than ever before.
True.
So that's why I think there's an increase as well.
But I would also say, Lisa, I mean, the most raucous or drunken that I've seen on a plane was a stag do that I happened to be, for some reason, 30 guys, and my seat was right in the middle of these 30. And I was telling this story, they were really nice, and they were sort of embracing me and almost adopting me, come on, mate, have a drink. They were all absolutely slaughtered, which was a flight to Malaga. But actually, all the drink they had was bought on the plane.
Yeah.
So it's all very well, Mr. O'Leary saying, that it's the pubs. Well, airlines aren't backwards in coming forwards when it comes to serving out ale, because they make a lot of money from it.
And 85% of most low-cost airlines, their actual profit comes from the ancillaries. So it is the food and the drink and the seats and the luggage. That's where the profit is made.
Yeah,
so it's no surprise that he's not that keen on not having that sort of ban on the plane itself. He did say at one point he'd be willing to look at a sort of like two drink ban on a plane as well. But if you look on any sort of budget airline, there's lots and lots of offers. 2 drinks for this price, 2 drinks. They're encouraging you to have more than 1 drink at a time in a single setting on the plane itself.
Well, indeed, and the flight I was on, which by the way wasn't a Ryanair flight, but you can guess what the other one might have been, and they kept saying to these guys, because they did get a bit loud and there was a little bit of inappropriate language, but generally speaking, most of the time. So one of the cabin crew kept saying, look, guys, if you don't calm down, we're not going to serve you any more drinks. But they did serve them more drinks.
Yeah.
They never stopped serving them drinks.
Because that's where they make the money.
Because that's where they make the money, isn't it? So I don't know what you've got to do to get, a drink ban, but...
Well, I think the one thing that they really have an issue with, and this is something that I do understand for airlines, it is a real problem, is people buying duty-free and then drinking that on board. That is illegal. You are not allowed to drink anything other than the alcohol that's served by the airline. You can't crack open your bottle of gin or your vodka that you bought in the duty-free. That is illegal. And that is where people really seem to have problems, is when people start to drink hard spirits on planes like that, and that's when you see these instances happen.
Do you know, I've never really thought too much about that, but I would imagine lots of people give that a go, don't they? Because they've got his hand luggage, isn't it?
They've brought it onto the plane with them. They've brought it in the airport. So, yes, I think it's good that we're having a discussion about it, but I think it's also making sure that everybody understands the consequences. The idea that actually it would be a lifetime ban for any flight might possibly be something that would start to actually make people, slightly control their behaviour in a better way.
I wonder whether Michael O'Leary, who's come up with some interesting proposals in terms of, you know, I don't know, outside toilets on planes and whatever else it was he came up with, standing up on flights. Remember that one? I think this is connected to that, because if more people are sober, more people can stand up. So we can go back to that idea he had about 10 years ago.
Well, he is the ultimate publicist, isn't he? And, you know, that perhaps was quite a clever idea, because he's taken the conversation off of jet fuel and flight cancellations and brought it into a different arena.
That's true. What's going on in that world? Just a general point on this, Lisa, if we can. I mean, you know, we see headlines, all flights are going to be cancelled, X amount of flights have been cancelled in May, although in the grander scale, if you look at how many flights take off compared to the it's quite small, but you know, the fact we're even seeing a number is clearly a bit disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the number, 13,000 flights cancelled in May, this was data from Cirium, an aviation analytics company, but then you had to put it into context. It was literally globally, that's the number of flights that were cancelled. Sure. And 130 million flights were actually taking place. Sorry, 130 million seats were actually available. 1.9 million had been taken out. It's less than sort of like 1.5% of the actual night. Now, that's no different to when we've seen some other global disruptions in terms of air traffic control issues or strikes. It's not particularly unusual. There is going to be challenges getting fuel. Yes, I think there's going to be a lot of people having to work very cleverly to manage schedules. There's been a massive drop in demand, so it's no bad thing that airlines are being told you don't have to, you know, run these planes half empty, otherwise you might lose your slot at the airport. Government has said no, okay, we're going to loosen those slot rules for now, so that you're not running planes half empty, and where you've got multiple flights to a destination in one day, then just trimming that network a bit so that you're filling each plane full and making sure that the jet fuel you're using is being used efficiently, I think is a really good idea. That
does make sense. I still marvel at the idea that whenever there's a cost of living crisis, as there is now, those flights are still rammed, aren't they? So people find the money from somewhere, which is kind of almost the very opposite. I'm kind of contradicting myself. We were talking earlier about how people cut back on certain things, whether it's buying that early morning coffee on the way to work, you know, or not putting the heating on at the same time in the morning. All this stuff. You know, we were talking about Malaga. There's a gazillion flights from multiple airlines, of course, to Malaga on a daily basis. But I bet you if it was July and I phoned up one of those airlines now, I could struggle to get a flight.
Well, I think if you wanted to book one now, you would find it was actually quite cheap, because we have seen this drop in demand. This is the first time that we've seen a sort of drop in demand since the pandemic, since 2021, in that people, when they're in an unsure situation where they don't know what's going to happen next, the conflict making them doubt, should I be spending my money? Because actually, normally, holidays are prioritised. Now, the one thing that we will not let drop, we'll do anything else, stop takeaways.
But don't mess with our holidays.
But not the holidays. But what we've seen in the last month is that drop in spending on travel. And that is because people are concerned about the current situation.
Interesting. Yeah, a guy I know, actually, he didn't have a place in Spain, but a relative did, and he would go out there a lot. He booked something, it was crazy, showed me on the app, he booked about 6 return flights months in advance. I can't remember how far back you're allowed to book in advance, but as far back as you can almost go. Because he was getting them for like 24 quid here and 12 quid back and God knows what. And he said, and if I don't use them, it's not the end of the world. So he booked them up, and as it turns out, I think he used 5 of the 7 or something that he booked, so it can work. Very quickly, Lisa, while you're with us, that when you're out and about, obviously, as a travel journalist, you go to some nice places, sometimes you go to some challenging places. It's important to say, travel journalists are not on holiday. No. You're not on holiday. They never have a sneaky drink at the bar. They never sit in a deck chair. They don't enjoy the sun. They don't go to the Taj Mahal and marvel at the history. None of that. You're just working and scribing all day long. That's all travel journalists do. Anyhow, so I don't know if you see this side of the story, but the German tourist who successfully sued a tour operator after hotel staff refused to enforce a towel reserving ban. This was in Kos, Greece. And they had a ban saying you can't reserve a thing, and he went out every morning to try and get chairs for his family. There were towels everywhere, so he sued the company and got an £850 refund. And I think it was fair enough, actually.
What's interesting about this is that it was the tour operator who he sued, so not the hotel. The tour operator that had sold him the package holiday, and it wasn't a cheap package holiday. This was £6,200 for a family of 4. And I think it's about the idea that the hotel alone, yes, they should be taking responsibility, but the tour operator, one who sold him the holiday, that's who he had the contract with.
Yes.
And it is right to expect that. They, you know, if they've got a policy in place to make sure that they are removing towels, if they've been there for X number of time, they should be doing that. It is hard work for hotels. They've got to employ staff to do that. Staff have to be, you know, anticipating the fact that it could be something that is going to end in sort of disruption and arguments because people would be annoyed that their towels are gone. But it very much should be something that's a warning bell to tour operators that they can't just sell a dream to somebody and then that not be the reality.
We went to, I'm trying to think where it was. It was Spain, one of the islands, I can't remember. It was only a few years ago, and it was before the kids were at school, so we didn't have to do during the holidays thing. So we go to this really nice hotel, great price because there's nothing hiked up, so it was out of season in a way, but the weather was amazing. And the guy said, do you want to upgrade to, well, there's two upgrades you can do. One is like a rooftop thing. I thought, well, it's already about 38 degrees, don't want to be up there. And the other is one of those hotels where you open your balcony, you swim onto your own pool. So you get your own bit of pool, and then it goes a bit bigger with a sort of shed. But I said, it would normally be, and we looked this up afterwards, like an extra, like $2,000 a week. And it was about £175 because no one was there really.
That's
so
a bargain.
They're just trying to give them away at that point. And we were like, yes. It was bliss.
No, I mean, that's
there
it.
Was
the
no
idea.
Going for there was none of that deck chair malarkey.
You've already got your own lounges there.
You've got your own.
And I think that's one of the things that we're going to see increasingly happen in hotels is the upselling. So they're going to start providing you with maybe a cabana, but you're going to have to pay for it, or a reserved area where you've got your own seat, but you're going to pay for it. I mean, we splashed, I think years ago, with the old Thomas Cook, I splashed about, you know, Thomas Cook were actually offering you the chance to reserve your sun lounger. And it was all great fun because then Bild in Germany, the German newspaper, got involved and they were saying, no, don't worry, we've got the loungers as well and we're going to take some of them from you. And it was, you know, it's a general fun, but I think the problem is that it's such an emotive issue. These are holidays, we've spent a fortune on them, we're looking forward to relaxing. And if you can't find a sun lounger, that is a bit much. There's every right that he should have had his money back.
Absolutely spot on. Listen, Lisa, good to see you. Thank you, Lisa Minogue, travel editor at The Sun, with us on Talk. 0344 499 1000. It's 10 to 4.
It just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Coming up on 5 to 4. We didn't do the Voice of Doom payoff as well, did we? Have we got a winner on the Voice of Doom? Earlier, over an hour ago, thereabouts, we played you this voice.
The voice of a Britain.
And the question, of course, was, who is that? I don't know the answer. These are some of the guesses. Betty Boothroyd, Chris Patton, Michael Ellis, Kit Malthouse, Betty Boothroyd. Lembit Opic, no. Kenneth Clark, no. Michael Fabricant, no. Damien Green, no. Somebody did ring in with the correct answer, but we only accept texts. There you go. I still don't know who it is. This in from No Name Given. Ian Collins, favourite sweet, blackjacks. I don't mind a blackjack. They're still around, of course. I don't know if I'd put it down as a favourite. Favourite cake, fruit cake and mature cheddar. Is that one cake or fruit cake and mature? That's not a cake. I'm calling that out. That's not a cake. Fruit cake and mature cheddar in the same cake. Favourite theme tune, The Persuaders. Was the Persuaders the Avenues and Alleyways song? Was that the Persuaders? I don't know. One here from Joanna who says mint, cracknel or marathon. Now, Snickers, of course, were my favourite bars. Rolos were more chewier than they are now. I'm still amazed I have teeth. Yeah. We had a mousetrap when, this is the game, I'm assuming, when the box was so huge and so were the pieces. Mousetraps were usually set up on a lawn because they were so big. We bought one, actually, a couple of Christmases ago, and it was a... Have you ever had one, Sam? They are a bit of a nightmare to set up. And, of course, they're over with like that. As distinct from Monopoly, which goes on for days, potentially. This one from Bruce, who says, seeing as we're not talking about that thing, thought I would bring up something that annoys me and find out if anybody else has to deal with this. So I've been married for 34 years, and when we have a disagreement, my wife always tells me to stop shouting and calm down. When it's not me shouting and being irate, it's actually my wife. Now, this generally happens when my wife knows I am right, but when she says this, it does make me shout and be irate. Does anyone else have to deal with this? A very happily married man, by the way. Well, I was until now, says Bruce. All right, calm down is possibly the most inflammatory thing you can say to somebody during an argument. Particularly when you are relatively calm at that point and the person you're arguing with really isn't. Calm down. It can be said in various ways, and those different ways can, of course, enlist a more volatile response. I think you better calm down. I am calm. Why are you shouting? I'm not shouting. Well, you just did. Yeah, I am now, but I wasn't shouting when you said shouting. It's all of that. We've all been there. This in from Gary in Larne, who says they always offer drink promotions on flights. A few weeks ago, I was flying back from Cyprus and bought 2 small bottles of wine under a promotion. Later, they came around again, and I was encouraged to buy 2 instead of just 1. Thankfully, I can handle my drink. That does sometimes happen. Every now and again on a I've been on a train when they've handed out a drink for free, like 2 drinks, and said, just have them. So whether they've got enough of them or whether you give them a right smile, I don't know. But absolutely, that can happen. And in terms of cost of living, Yvonne in Solihull says, as pensioners, we don't even turn on the hot tap anymore for fear of the boiler firing up. Yeah, just to turn on the tap. As soon as that boiler says, oh, you're looking for heat, bang, up it goes. I get it. Yvonne, thank you very much indeed for that. 0344 499 1000 is the number you will need for Kevin. Is Kev? Did I just see Kev walk in then and then walk out again? Oh, he was there.
Yeah, you saw me.
I did see it. I thought no, it's a mirage. It was a mirage of Kevin O'Sullivan. We've had some great calls today, and of course it is a day when we can't talk about that thing, so we've managed to successfully do that and broken no Ofcom rules, Kev, which frankly is